Chapter 2308. Friends should drink when they met. The wine was Xian family's 10,000-year-old floating dream. Lin Sun roasted a complete 5-colored peacock in the 5th level of the Emperor realm. Xian Juyin was amazed, Ling Kezi was frightened, and Jintian Xianyue was speechless. When she saw Xia Ji, she became even more silent and absent-minded, which made Xian Juyin sigh again. Then, they ate meat and drank wine. After a few cups of wine, they couldn't help feeling a little complacent. This floating dream was really too strong. When Xian Juyin tasted the burnt and oily 5-colored peacock meat, he was stunned for a moment and suddenly put his arm around Lin Sun's shoulder excitedly. "Big brother, please accept me as your younger brother for the sake of having a good meal in the future." Lin Sun said grumpily, "If so, you and I will become brothers who drink meat and drink wine." Xian Juyin was stunned. "It doesn't sound good, but it doesn't matter. As long as I can live well with you, I can even give up the position of the head of Xian family. Try it if you dare." Xian Shangchen looked over with a gloomy look, which made Xian Juyin feel embarrassed. He caught a glimpse of Ling Kezi chewing a large piece of roasted meat and slapped him. "Aren't you a monk who doesn't even drink meat soup? Why are you eating meat and drinking wine now?" Ling Kezi was hit on the back of his head, but he still chewed the roasted meat and said vaguely, "Who wants soup when there is meat?" Then, he cut another peacock wing and was about to hold it in his hand, but it was snatched away by Xia Ji. "Little monk, this wing belongs to me." Ling Kezi felt helpless and cut another piece of thigh meat, but Xia Ji snatched it away. Ling Kezi was instantly anxious. "Isn't this a little too overbearing?" However, it was not over yet. A group of Xian clan old monsters rushed in from outside the great hall, shouting, "What are you doing here? I heard there is 5-colored peacock meat to eat?" Someone pretended to be reserved. "This taste, it's amazing." Someone sniffed and showed an intoxicated expression. "Alas, I have never tasted 5-colored peacock meat after living for tens of thousands of years. My little friend, do you mind if we have a taste?" Someone had a cheeky smile on his face. As they shouted, the Xian family's old men were not at all courteous. They directly sat before the roasted meat, spread open their hands and began to tear the roasted meat with their hand. At this moment, even Xian Shangchen could no longer remain calm. He said anxiously, "Uncles, please be more reserved. You are the face of our Xian family and have high positions and authority. How can you? Hey, don't fight over it. Leave this peacock neck for me." As he spoke, he no longer cared about his manners and joined in the fight for the roasted meat. When Lin Sun said that he would roast another 5-color peacock, they all smiled with satisfaction and became more reserved. "Little Nine, this bone is for you." "What? You still dislike it?" "This is a 5th-level Emperor Realm peacock's bone. Sucking in a mouthful of its bone marrow is no different from swallowing a peerless medicine. This brat has not advanced to martial emperor yet. Naturally, he does not understand the value of such a thing. Sigh, Little Nine, don't you have a heart? Look at the Dao Yuan Emperor and then look at you. You've completely embarrassed our Xian clan." As the Xian family's old men ate and drank to their heart's content, they reprimanded Xian Juyin rudely. Lin Sun had become someone else's child. This almost made Xian Juyin cry. However, he could not refute them. Who asked him to be the grandson of these old men? "Xian Yu, why aren't you eating?" As Lin Sun roasted the meat, he suddenly noticed that Jintian Xian Yu did not seem to be in a good mood. Jintian Xian Yu immediately composed herself and said in a low voice, "Child, I would like to propose a toast to you." As she spoke, she picked up the wine pot and poured a cup for both Lin Sun and herself. "Sure." Lin Sun smiled and raised his cup. Jintian Xian Yu's beautiful eyes stared at Lin Sun. She wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, she sighed in her heart and said, "Xian Yu wishes child a safe return from the Zhenlong world." As she finished speaking, she raised her cup and drank it in one gulp. A blush appeared on her jade-like fair face. She seemed to be unable to handle the alcohol. However, she filled her cup again and looked at Xian Juyin. She said with a smile, "Child Xian, I propose a toast to you too. Thank you for your hospitality these days." Xian Juyin could not help but be worried. He said, "Miss Xianyu, fleeting like a dream is too strong. Drink it slowly." Jintian Xianyue smiled and drained the cup in one gulp. Her picturesque face was covered in a fiery red glow, causing her to be extremely charming. "Ling Kezi, come, let's drink." She filled her cup again. Lin Sun looked at Jintian Xianyu in a daze. He sighed in his heart as he watched her drink almost wantonly. Some things, how could he not feel it? Not long after, Jintian Xianyu was drunk. She lay in front of the table. Her eyes were blurry and her red lips were slightly open. She muttered in a light voice, "Fleeting like a dream. What a good name! If it was only a dream, how good would it be? At least I would wake up one day." 2 streams of tears flowed silently from her starry eyes. However, no one noticed because her head was lowered and she rested her head on her arm. "Since I see that you're safe, I have no worries in my heart. Since I see that you're safe, I have no more desires in my heart. Since I see that you're safe, I have no more intentions to stay." Amidst her muttering, Jintian Xianyu fell asleep. She seemed to be too sleepy, and she seemed to have really fallen drunk in a dreamy state. At dawn the next day, Lin Sun woke up from his hangover. He couldn't help but smile when he recalled the scenes of him drinking and reveling last night. He hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. He stood up and walked out of the room. Xia Ji was waiting there since a long time ago. She sat before the table and ate melon seed. It was a snow spirit sunflower seed that was plump and crystalline and overflowed with spirit energy. The seeds were like diamonds, crispy, and had a refreshing and crisp texture. Big Yellow was snoring on the ground, and it was holding a bone in its mouth. Ling Kezi sat with his legs crossed and looked solemn. He turned the beads in his hands and murmured, "Everything that has been done is like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, and a shadow, like dew and lightning. Next time, I must not eat too much." Lin Sun glanced around and was stunned when he didn't see Xian Juyin and Jintian Xianyu. As he was thinking, Xian Juyin came in from outside the hall and said with a smile, "Good morning, big brother." Lin Sun asked, "Where is Miss Xianyue?" Xian Juyin gave a long sigh and said, "She left." "Left? Where?" Lin Sun was stunned. "She went home. She said that she had been out for a long time. She left early in the morning for fear that her relatives and friends would worry about her." Xian Juyin glanced at Xia Ji not far away and whispered, "Big brother, didn't you see it all the time? Miss Xianyue." Lin Sun waved his hand and said, "Don't say it. I understand." Xian Juyin said grumpily, "Since you understand, why do you make Miss Xianyue so sad?" Lin Sun's mood was also tumbling. Jintian Xianyu, the most dazzling pearl of the Jintian family, the first beauty in the White Emperor Star area, with immortal flesh and divine bones, unparalleled charm among the younger generation in the starry sky, Jintian Xianyu's talent, foundation, cultivation, and background were all the best in the world. No matter where she appeared, she would be surrounded by people like a moon surrounded by stars. But it was precisely such a peerless woman who had followed behind him since he was on the boat all those years ago, taking care of his daily needs, and running about for him. Lin Sun found that he had actually been used to the existence of Jintian Xianyu over the years. She knew his nature and his preferences. Like the spring breeze and rain, she silently and painstakingly walked with him, weathering the wind and rain and tasting the ups and downs together. But all along, it seemed that she had never made any request to him. Thinking of this, Lin Sun felt guilty. Lin Sun had never let anyone down in his life. But today, because of Jintian Xianyu's departure, he felt unspeakable guilt and emptiness in his heart. He felt lost. "Big brother." Xian Juyin still wanted to say something, but Lin Sun waved his hand and said, "If you really treat me as a brother, don't mention it again." Then he turned and walked into the room. He wanted to have some quiet time. Xian Juyin scratched his head helplessly. He didn't understand why a peerless emperor would be so ignorant about love. From ancient times to the present, which outstanding man on the ancient road of the starry sky didn't have 3 or 5 confidants? Not to mention confidants, he even had a lot of wives and concubines. Like his father, Xian Shangchen, who was incomparably romantic when he was young and had many lovers, so that Xian Juyin had 17 or 18 concubines, all of whom were as beautiful as fairies. Influenced by Lin Sun since childhood, Xian Juyin couldn't understand how Lin Sun could be so cold-hearted. He couldn't help looking at Xia Ji in the distance. Undoubtedly, even if her face was covered by the brim of the hat, even if she was sitting casually, her every move still gave people an indescribable mysterious beauty. But Xian Juyin didn't think that Jintian Xian Yu would be inferior to him. The beauties in the world were just like plum blossoms, orchids, bamboo, and chrysanthemums. Each had its own advantages. How could there be the most beautiful one? Therefore, Xian Juyin suspected that Lin Sun was being watched too strictly. Miss Xiaji, do you think Miss Xianyue is a good person? He walked forward and sat opposite to Xiaji, who was eating melon seeds. Xiaji nodded. Xian Juyin said again, "Is Miss Xianyue beautiful? Of course, it's not appropriate for you to say another woman is beautiful. I just want to say that I can't let my elder brother be too cruel. I'm afraid that any man will not have the heart to hurt such a beautiful girl." Xia Ji was silent for a moment and said, "As long as she is beautiful, no one will have the heart to hurt her." Xian Juyin said without hesitation, "Of course. It's the same for a man. Look at my big brother. He's the first person to become a martial emperor in 100,000 years. He's also very handsome and can be said to be a dragon or a phoenix. He's so handsome that girls can't wait to fall in love with him." As he said, he suddenly closed his mouth. Opposite him, Xia Ji lifted the brim of the hat that covered her face and stared at Xian Juyin with a pair of eyes as clear as stars. "Am I beautiful?" Chapter 2309. Xian Juyin was dumbfounded. It was the first time he saw a woman who could be so beautiful in this world. She was like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world, transcending the world and making others feel ashamed of their inferiority. Being stared at by her eyes that were as clear as stars, Xian Juyin felt suffocated. She was clearly in front of him, but he felt that he could never get close to her. Looking at Xian Juyin, who was in a daze, Xia Ji frowned and covered her face with the brim of her hat again. Only then did Xian Juyin let out a long sigh of relief. When he looked at Xia Ji, who was sitting there quietly, shock and amazement still lingered in his eyes. "No wonder Brother Lin cares about you so much," Xian Juyin sighed. Xia Ji's beauty could stir one's mind. It was hard to imagine that there could be such an otherworldly beauty in this world. "It seems that I'm also beautiful." At the same time, Xia Ji also spoke, as if she had been relieved of a heavy burden. Xian Juyin was stunned. Was there a need to ask? "You really don't know how beautiful you are?" he asked seriously. Xia Ji nodded. "Being beautiful can't be eaten." Xian Juyin was speechless. What a joke! How could such a beautiful person not know how beautiful she was? He was almost driven mad. After a long time, Xian Juyin took a deep breath and said, "Miss Xia Ji, have you heard of the phrase, 'bring disaster to a country'?" Xia Ji shook her head. Xian Juyin was speechless and said, "You just have to remember that anyone who sees a beautiful person like you will definitely pursue you crazily. So, if it's not necessary, don't let others see your face in the future. Otherwise, there will definitely be a disaster that will bring disaster to a country and people." Xia Ji said, "Oh." Xian Juyin still wanted to say something, but Xian Shangchen and a group of Xian family elders had already walked into the hall. Today was the day Lin Sun and the others would go to the true dragon world. Above a starry sky, Xian Shangchen and Lin Sun stood side by side. Xia Ji, Goldie, Xian Juyin, and Ling Kezi stood beside them. In a place even further away, a group of Xian family elders were busy preparing to open a passageway to the true dragon world. The true dragon world has migrated from the starry sky ancient road since the primordial era. Over the countless years, although many descendants of the true dragon have come to the starry sky ancient road, strictly speaking, the true dragon world no longer belongs to the starry sky ancient road. Xian Shangchen told Lin some information about the true dragon world. In the true dragon world, there were also countless living beings and countless races. The true dragon bloodline was the only race that ruled over it. The true dragon world had a passageway that led to the immortal phoenix nest, the black tortoise continent, and the white tiger god mountain. Similarly, it also had a passageway that led to the opposite shore. Be it the true dragon, the immortal phoenix, the black tortoise, or the white tiger, they were all Khanate spirit clans in the truest sense of the word. According to what Xian Shangchen said, a descendant of the true dragon possessed the ability to absolutely crush another in the same cultivation realm, and only human cultivators that stood at the absolute peak would be able to go against it. In the true dragon bloodline, it could be said that there were as many experts as there were clouds, and there were many martial emperors. Even if a dragon emperor did not embark on the absolute path of cultivation, the power of his bloodline was enough to suppress his peers in the emperor realm. After introducing the situation of the true dragon world, Xian Shangchen reminded Lin Sun, "You must be careful when you go to the true dragon world. The people of the true dragon bloodline, regardless of their age, are all extremely arrogant and protective of their own." Lin Sun nodded. He had two purposes in going to the true dragon world. One was to find Zhao Jingxian, and the other was to kill the purple-clothed woman, Yan Xing. "It's done. Patriarch, it's time for you to take action." A joyful voice came from afar. The elders of the Xian family joined hands and opened a whirlpool portal with their supreme power. Xian Shangchen nodded and handed a jade slip to Lin Sun. "Give this to the female senior in the heaven accessing place." Lin Sun was stunned. Then he realized that Xian Shangchen was referring to Shi. However, when he thought that Xian Shangchen, the patriarch of the Xian family who had lived for countless years, actually called Shi senior, Lin Sun could not help but feel a little strange. When he thought about it, it made sense. When Xian Shangchen entered the heaven accessing place, he was still a young man who had not yet become a saint. At that time, she was already standing guard in front of the gate of the heaven accessing place. The jade slip contains some clues about searching for the senior's memories and origins. If she sees it, she should be able to recall something, Xian Shangchen said. Lin Sun immediately realized the value of the jade slip and carefully put it away. Lin Sun immediately realized the value of this jade slip and carefully put it away. Xian Shangchen immediately realized the value of the jade slip and carefully put it away. Xian Shangchen took a deep breath. Suddenly, a monstrous and terrifying aura rushed out from his body, causing the starry sky to tremble and rumble like a tide. Lin Sun and the others retreated far away. "Rise!" Xian Shangchen shouted loudly. A boundless world surged out from behind him, and it was boundlessly vast like a desolate wasteland. In the center of the world, there was a full moon shining alone. This was Xian Shangchen's imperial life world. A terrifying and boundless world order emerged from it. The oppressive force made Lin Sun feel suffocated and his heart trembled. This old fellow has actually already stepped onto that path just like Master. Big Yellow's eyes widened in shock. "Go!" Xian Shangchen flicked his sleeve, and a peerlessly dazzling full moon whistled out from within the vast world. As soon as it appeared in this expanse of the starry sky, its dazzling and clear radiance swept out, and it seemed as if it could illuminate the darkness of the ages. Anyone who saw this full moon would feel as if they were looking at the incarnation of the great Tao. It was filled with an indescribable supreme aura. It was too dazzling, and it emitted a myriad of divine radiances that covered the starry sky. This full moon was the Shenxian treasure mirror, the foundation of the Xian family. A thick pillar of light shot out from the Xunxian treasure mirror. It was like a silver river of stars, and it crashed into the vortex gate created by the old monsters of the Xian family. Rumble! A passageway was forcefully created within the vortex gate. It pierced through the void and extended to the depth. "Nephew, hurry up and take action," Xian Shangchen said in a low voice. "Let's go." Big Yellow led the way. His body emitted boundless light that enveloped Lin Sun and Xia Ji. They charged into the vortex gate. Xian Juyin shouted at the top of his lungs, "Brother, take care! If possible, remember to bring back some dragon meat to taste." Ling Kezi also waved his hand to send Lin Sun off. In a flash, Lin Sun and the others had disappeared into the depths of the passageway. After a quarter of an hour, Xian Shangchen put away the Xunxian treasure mirror. His face was pale and he was panting. It was not an easy task to create a passageway that traversed the void and reached the Zhenlong world. Fortunately, it went smoothly this time. Alas, I don't know when we can meet again after this farewell. Thinking of the peacock meat last night, I'm really reluctant. Xian Juyin let out a long sigh. Ling Kezi said, "Me too." Xian Shangchen glared at the two of them and said, "From today onwards, you two will cultivate in seclusion. You can only come out when you break through to the great emperor realm." Yes, that's how it should be. The old men of the Xian family laughed and gloated. Xian Juyin was too mischievous and unambitious. He had to be polished. "Father, there's still Miss Xianyue." Xian Juyin rolled his eyes and said quickly, "If there's a chance this time, let her go to the mysterious world with us to cultivate." "You like that girl?" Xian Shangchen was surprised. Xian Juyin rolled his eyes, "Of course not. I just want to help her." Xian Shangchen waved his hand, "Sure." Ling Kezi couldn't help but transmit his voice to Xian Juyin. "Miss Xianyue didn't leave?" Xian Shangchen said calmly, "Of course not. I just want to test Lin Sun's attitude. Alas, let's not talk about this. Anyway, if there's a chance, we should help Xianyue." Ling Kezi nodded firmly. Xianyue was indeed a good girl. Xian family. Xianyue looked at the sky alone, her clothes fluttering in the wind. She was lost in thought. Only infatuated people can be infatuated with Tao. Suddenly, Xian Caney, who was dressed in colorful clothes and had snow-white hair, appeared beside her. She looked at Xianyue and asked, "Would you like to learn swordsmanship from me?" Xianyue was stunned. "Senior, don't tell me you pity me." A touch of pity appeared in Xian Caney's eyes. "Silly girl, do you want to be further and further away from the person you love on Tao?" As early as the first day when Xian Juyin brought Xianyue to the Xian family, Xian Caney had sensed that this girl was infatuated with love. And her swordsmanship was also infatuated with love. It didn't matter what she was infatuated with, as long as she was an infatuated person. As the saying goes, one can't live without madness. "I'm willing." After a while, Xianyue took a deep breath and nodded in agreement. Xian Caney smiled and said, "I promise you won't be disappointed if you learn swordsmanship from me. Even at the cost of all the resources of the Xian family, I will make you a peerless female sword emperor who can surpass your master." In the ultimate ruins. In the secret realm of Demon Saint. Under the ruins of the collapsed mountain gate of Fangtsuan Mountain, there was a sudden tremor. Not long after, the broken stone tablet with crescent and 3 stars fell down with a bang. After that, a figure crawled out from the place where the stone tablet fell with great difficulty. His hair was disheveled, and his body was branded with horrifying Dao injuries. His skin was torn and his flesh was exposed, and he looked indescribably miserable. He stood up shakily, and his eyes were filled with resentment and ruthless hatred. "Old Man Puty, when I, Luo Yunshi, return to the starry sky ancient path, I will definitely annihilate all the remnants of Fangtsuan Mountain and destroy everything you left behind." He let out a roar and his voice shook the ruins. If the great figures of the starry sky ancient path were here, they would probably not believe that this figure in ragged clothes, covered in wounds, and miserable like a beggar was the celestial emperor who controlled the forbidden power of order and suppressed the heavens. In the demon saint's secret realm, in a valley that was flowing with auspicious clouds, a handsome man in a golden robe with bright eyes suddenly woke up from his sleep, and he shouted angrily, "Ah Lu, which evil creature is screaming?" Chapter 23:10. On the burly man's shoulder, a little man in white crossed his arms and nodded. That's the one. Perched on the shoulder of the white-robed man was a butterfly with gorgeous wings. At this moment it was fluttering its wings, and as its wings flashed, countless tiny cracks appeared in the surrounding void. "Let's go and take a look. How dare he disturb this young master's sweet dream? I must kill that evil creature." As soon as the golden-robed man got up, a big black bird hit him on the head with a big black pot. Clang! The golden-robed man almost fainted, and a big bump appeared on his forehead. The big black bird said proudly, "Miss Ahu said that we'll only have a chance to leave this valley when we become emperors. I'll kill you." The golden-robed man covered his head and rushed out to chase after the wretched big black bird. The latter had already fled as if there was oil on its feet. As it fled, it laughed at the golden-robed man, looking very despicable. "Ah Lu, if you're brothers, let's kill this thieving bird together," the golden-robed man shouted. "Little Silver and Little Butterfly, let's go together. Damn it, I'll use that black pot to stew it today." In the distance, near the entrance of the valley, Ahu sat cross-legged. When she heard the commotion behind her, she could not help but smile. She was already used to it. When they returned from Kunlun ruins back then, she had brought Old Toad and the others through a deep and winding space-time secret passage. They had originally planned to return to the Soul Oblivion Ocean. Who would have thought that the space-time secret passage would be pulled by the power of the ultimate, causing them to fall directly into the ultimate? Then, under Old Toad's guidance, they arrived at the Demon Saint's secret zone that Lin Sun had entered back then. However, not long after, they were trapped in this valley because they had to avoid a terrifying calamity. Misfortune and fortune depended on each other. Although this valley was like an unbreakable cage, it could be said to be a rare paradise for cultivation. Chaotic aura surged, and the origin power of the great Tao surged. Over the years, their cultivations had made rapid breakthroughs. According to Ahu's speculation, if they wanted to leave, they would probably have to reach the Emperor stage to break the restriction power in this valley. Right now, they could only cultivate here and wait for the opportunity to become emperors. 10 days later, news came from the ancient path of the starry sky. Heavenly Emperor Shur had returned and reappeared in the world. For a time, the world was shaken, and all the heavens in the starry sky were paying close attention. Everyone was waiting to see how the Dao Yuan Emperor, the ruler of the starry sky, would react in the face of the Dao Yuan Emperor who had snatched away the fortune of an immortal sovereign. What kind of punishment would the Copper Sparrow Tower, which had once protected the Dao Yuan Emperor, suffer? It was also at this moment that many great powers suddenly noticed that the Copper Sparrow Pavilion that was reputed to be one of the 3 dark giants had actually completely vanished, as if it had evaporated into thin air. What was most inconceivable was that after Shur Tiendi returned, he didn't take action immediately but chose to go into seclusion. Very soon, there was a piece of heavy news that Heavenly Emperor Shur had suffered a serious Dao injury in the ultimate ruins. It was a tossed stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples, causing the world to tremble. No one could have imagined that Shur Tiendi, who controlled the forbidden power of order and was like the ruler of the starry sky, would suffer a loss in the land of the ultimate. This was too inconceivable. Haha, I knew it would be like this. When Zhong Qiu heard the news, he couldn't help but laugh. Only he knew that although the gate of Fang Siyuan Mountain had collapsed, it was still not a place that anyone could enter and leave at will. When I control the power of the Order of Nirvana Freedom, it will be the day I take your head, Zhongqiu slowly closed his eyes and fell into a deep level of meditation. Boom! The stars moved and the world turned upside down. The figures of Lin Sun and the others suddenly appeared in a vast and magnificent world. Is this the world of True Dragon? As soon as Lin Sun fell into the world of True Dragon, he felt that the air suddenly became dense, as if he had entered a desolate and primitive land. An ancient, rough, and boundless power of heaven and earth filled the whole sky. Wisps of sparkling light rain of the Great Way filled the air. If an ordinary person entered this world, he would probably not survive. The pneuma of this world was heavy, vast, and full of majestic power, as if a mountain was pressing down on it. It was countless times more condensed than the outside world. Even if an ordinary practitioner in the lower 5 realms entered this world, he might not be able to fly in the air, because he couldn't use such strong power of heaven and earth. Taking a deep breath, Big Yellow closed his eyes and sensed for a moment. Then, he said, "There is the breath of those true dragons in this world. This is the world of True Dragon." Lin Sun and Xia Ji were immediately relieved. Looking around, they found that this world was extremely vast. Mountains, rivers, and all things in the universe were very large. The mountains were tens of thousands of meters high, and some were even thousands of meters high. They stretched endlessly. On that vast land, any random plant would be dozens of feet tall, and any random tree would require over 100 people to wrap their arms around it. Even a random leaf was like a millstone. The butterflies flying in the air were tens of meters high, like demons and spirits. After a while, Lin Sun withdrew his gaze and said, "Big Yellow, have you heard how big the world of True Dragon is?" Big Yellow shook his head and said, "According to the legend, the real body of an emperor ancestor of a true dragon can meander for hundreds of thousands of miles in the starry sky, covering the sky and the sun. It is extremely terrifying. So, the world that can accommodate the whole tribe of true dragons is bound to be big. Then, how should we find the tribe of true dragons?" Lin Sun frowned. Second senior brother once said that the purple-robed woman, Yan Xing, came to the world of True Dragon to obtain the precious blood of ancestral dragon from the bloodline of true dragons in order to recover the remnant soul of the nameless supreme emperor. This meant that Lin Sun had to find the tribe of true dragons first if he wanted to kill the purple-robed woman, Yan Xing. Moreover, Zhao Jingxian was also in the tribe of true dragons, so she might be of help. Big Yellow said, "Let's find out some information first. As the absolute overlord of the world of True Dragon, the nest of true dragons must be known by everyone." Lin Sun nodded. "I'll help you find Yan Xing," Xi's voice suddenly sounded. In the next moment, she walked out of the heaven-accessing place. Her graceful figure transformed into an illusory rain of light, mysterious and transcendent. Her voice was cold as she said, "I've fought with her before. As long as she appears in the world of True Dragon, I'll definitely be able to capture her." Lin Sun smiled and said, "That's great." He suddenly thought of something and took out the jade slip given to him by Xian Shangchen. He handed it over and said, "Senior Xian Shangchen gave this to you." She opened the jade slip and was silent for a long time. Then, she said, "In the end, I still have to go to the other side of the starry sky." The jade slip recorded clues related to her memory and identity. However, they were very fragmented and vague. The only thing she was sure of was that all the clues pointed to the other side of the starry sky. "When the time comes, I'll help you find it," Lin Sun said. She nodded. Big Yellow stared at Xi and suddenly said, "Fellow Taoist, has your cultivation already?" She glanced at Big Yellow and said, "Yes, I've crossed that threshold." Big Yellow exclaimed, "It's not easy to cross that threshold. Over the countless years, there are only a few people who can do this on the ancient path of the starry sky." Lin Sun asked curiously, "What realm is it?" Big Yellow said disdainfully, "Is this something that a second-level emperor realm like you can think about? You'll naturally understand when you step into the emperor ancestor realm." As they spoke, there was a void fluctuation in the distance. "Quick, it's over there!" A huge crack appeared in the sky over there and produced a shocking phenomenon. Amidst the clamor, a group of figures rushed over from afar. These figures were very strange. Some had wings on their backs, some had the head of a bull and the body of a human, and some were ferocious birds with golden wings. They were of all shapes and sizes and clearly belonged to different races. When they saw Lin Sun and his group, they could not help but be stunned. Then, they became anxious and doubtful. Originally, they thought that the phenomenon here was probably due to the appearance of some precious treasure. However, it was obvious that they guessed wrong. "It seems that we don't need to inquire blindly anymore." Big Yellow grinned. "It's a pity that they are just some nobodies in the saint realm. I'll leave that guy to you. What are you going to do?" A Minotaur's expression changed and he asked nervously. The other creatures were also nervous. In their eyes, the aura of Lin Sun and his group was simply too terrifying. They just stood there casually like gods descending from the heavens. "Don't be nervous. I just want to inquire some information from you." Lin Sun said in a gentle voice that he wanted to visit the true dragon tribe. Suddenly, those creatures showed a strange expression. They did not even know where the true dragon tribe was. They were definitely not from the true dragon world. The Minotaur said quickly, "Seniors, the true dragon tribe is located in the depths of the East Sea. As for the specific location, only a few people know." The other creatures nodded. The true dragon bloodline was the ruler of this world. They were supreme existences. Naturally, the exact location of their residence was not something that just anyone could find out. "How far is the East Sea from here?" Lin Sun asked. "About hundreds of millions of miles away," a creature with wings on its back replied. Lin Sun and Big Yellow looked at each other. The true dragon world was simply too vast. After that, Lin Sun inquired about some other matters. Very soon, he learned that every city in the vast territory of the true dragon world had a great force attached to the bloodline of the true dragon. He might be able to find out more information about the bloodline of the true dragon through the leaders of these great forces. Several million miles away from this place was a huge city by the name of Golden Leaf. The power that controlled the city was the true dragon imperial clan. After understanding all this, Lin Sun brought Xiaji, Shi, and Big Yellow with him. After seeing them off with their eyes, those creatures felt as if they had just survived a calamity. They wiped off their sweat with lingering fear in their hearts. Those humans were simply too terrifying. An hour later, far away, Lin Sun had already seen the outline of a towering city on the vast land. Chapter 23:11 Golden Leaf City. It was the largest city within a circumference of 1,000,000 miles. Since ancient times, it had always been controlled by the true Ho imperial clan. Every day, there would be creatures from the large tribes living in the nearby territories coming to Golden Leaf City to trade. Most of them were here to exchange cultivation resources. Because of this, Gold Leaf City was extremely prosperous. In terms of the scale of the city, it could be ranked among the top 100 cities in the true dragon world. "Big Yellow, we're here to scout for information. Without my order, don't act on your own," Lin Sun reminded. Big Yellow was too domineering and arrogant. If he wasn't restrained, he would definitely be a troublemaker. Big Yellow sneered and looked disdainful. "Don't worry, I won't bother with ordinary trash at all. Will the deities in heaven care about those ants?" These words were very ear-piercing. It was a problem with one's worldview. But Lin Sun didn't bother to correct them. As long as they didn't make trouble, everything was fine. Following this, Lin Sun instructed Shi and Summer Solstice to restrain their auras. He wanted to keep a low profile to avoid unnecessary trouble. Immediately, the group moved toward Qianya City in the distance. Along the way, they saw many strange creatures. They could recognize some of them, but it was their first time seeing existences like Big Yellow and Shi. It looked like a living creature, like a foot-tall dwarf. Its legs were covered with roots, and its head was covered with green branches and leaves. It had triangular eyes, a large nose, and its mouth was filled with fine, snow-white fangs. It looked very ferocious. It was hard for one to tell whether this was a plant spirit or a vicious bird or a beast. Either way, it was extremely strange. There were also some living beings that looked like giant marbles that bounced through the air. Anyone who saw them would have the urge to kick them, but soon, Lin Sun and the others noticed that no matter what kind of creatures they were, when they saw them, they all showed a strange look, as if they were staring at a group of monsters. This made Lin frown. What was going on? Didn't you notice that there wasn't a single human cultivator among the creatures we saw along the way? Perhaps that's why they were so surprised when we appeared. Xi's voice was cold. Lin Sun nodded. Xi's reminder made him realize that human cultivators seemed to be extremely rare in the Zhenlong world. Even though some creatures had taken the form of humans, their appearances and auras were fundamentally different from that of humans. Friend from the dog clan. Suddenly, a robust man flew over from afar. He had brilliant golden hair, eyes that were like copper bells, and his arms that were thick like rocks were covered in a layer of scales. He looked at Big Yellow, pointed at Lin Sun, Xi and Xi and asked, "Are these the human slaves you captured?" Big Yellow was stunned and looked at Lin Sun and the others. Lin Sun and the others also frowned. This sentence inadvertently revealed a humiliation to the human clan. Looking at this burly man, his expression and words were very casual. Obviously, he had long been accustomed to seeing humans as lowly existences like slaves. Besides, he spoke directly to Big Yellow, which indirectly showed his attitude. "What's the matter?" Big Yellow asked. "My young master has taken a fancy to this female slave." The burly man pointed at Xi and said, "He wants to buy her. Name a price." Big Yellow's eyes widened in disbelief. "You want to buy her?" The burly man frowned. "She is just a lowly slave. Do you think my Golden Dragon Lion clan can't afford her?" As he spoke, he casually threw a storage bag in front of Big Yellow. "There are 1,000 true dragon treasure coins in this bag. If you put them in the market, you can buy 17 or 18 lowly slaves of the human clan." Big Yellow laughed and said, "Where's your young master?" The tall and sturdy man pointed into the distance. There was an enormous treasured ship that was completely gilded in gold, and it was dazzling under the light of the sky. When Lin Sun and the others looked over, they saw an incomparably valiant golden-haired young man in a magnificent robe walk out of the treasure ship. His eyes swept over like lightning, and he said, "Friend, it's me who has taken a fancy to that girl. Can you give me face?" His words were filled with arrogance. Big Yellow sighed softly. "Lin Sun, I didn't take the initiative to cause trouble. It's these blind bastards who foolishly came to die." "What did you say?" The burly man was furious. Big Yellow glanced at him. Bang! The burly man's body exploded, and his flesh and blood were directly wiped out. Big Yellow was disdainful. Shouting and shouting, "Do you really think I won't bother with ants?" On the golden treasure ship in the distance, the luxuriously robed young man frowned and shouted, "How dare you kill my retainer?" Big Yellow didn't feel any pressure when killing such a character. He didn't even bother to talk nonsense. He swept his eyes around and made a bang sound. The golden treasure ship in the distance exploded. The luxuriously robed young man didn't have time to escape and exploded along with the treasure ship. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun didn't stop him. Since he dared to have designs on Xi, even if Big Yellow didn't make a move, he wouldn't be polite. This area wasn't far from Golden Leaf City. When the golden treasure ship belonging to the Golden Dragon Lion clan exploded, many living beings in the vicinity were alarmed. That lowly human actually dared to attack the Golden Dragon Lion clan? Many living beings of various races couldn't believe it. How many years has it been? The human race has been like slaves. They can only be enslaved. When did they dare to be so bold? Are these fellows rebelling? A clamor sounded. Many people looked at Lin Sun and the others with bewilderment and astonishment. Lin Sun and the others couldn't help but frown when they heard these voices. The living beings of the Zhenlong world seemed to be very unfriendly toward the human race. How dare you? How dare you cause trouble in front of Golden Leaf City? Go and capture all those human scums. Suddenly, an explosive shout that was like a thunderclap resounded from the extremely distant Golden Leaf City, and it resounded through the clouds. A ferocious figure stood on the city gate tower. Many living beings recognized that it was Ho Kuei, the quasi-emperor of the Zhenlong imperial clan. Instantly, a group of figures rushed out of Golden Leaf City. They were fully armed and full of killing intent as they charged toward Lin Sun and the others. Whoosh! This time, she made a move. He waved his hand casually. In the void, dozens of figures were torn apart like flies in a hurricane. Their bodies exploded and blood mist filled the air. With a wave of his hand, he killed all the guards of the Zhenlong imperial clan. All the living beings present were dumbfounded. They screamed in fear and the scene turned chaotic. Lin Sun didn't expect she to take the initiative to make a move. He couldn't help glancing at her. She said coldly, "With our strength, why do we need to endure?" As she spoke, she disappeared into thin air. The next moment, she appeared on the city gate tower and grabbed the ferocious quasi-emperor, Ho Kuei. Ho Kuei had been full of killing intent and extremely arrogant a moment ago. Now, he was so scared that he almost wet his pants. He asked in fear, "Who exactly are you?" Crack! Ho Kuei's neck was twisted and his spirit was extracted by she. Then, she used a secret technique to search his spirit. Yellow grew excited. "Brat, did you see that? This is how we do things. When we should keep a low profile, we should keep a low profile. When we should be arrogant, why would we care about anything?" Lin Sun's lips twitched and he sighed softly. "I didn't expect the races of the Zhenlong imperial clan to treat us human cultivators like this." The Zhenlong imperial clan controlled the Zhenlong imperial clan. Did this mean that in the eyes of the Zhenlong imperial clan, human cultivators were as despicable as slaves? The foundation of the Zhenlong imperial clan is not bad. They have 2 old fellows at the 8th level of the Emperor Realm and more than 10 other Emperor Realm cultivators. She's cold voice sounded from the city gate tower in the distance. This clan controls a territory of 15 million miles. They have more than 100 subordinate races of different sizes. However, I didn't find any valuable clues related to the Zhenlong imperial clan from this person. I can only say that this kind of person is only suitable to be a gatekeeper. As he spoke, she twisted his finger and Ho Kuei's spirit was crushed inch by inch. Lin Sun and the others teleported and arrived at the city gate tower. Qianya City was extremely prosperous. However, the commotion here had already caused panic in the surrounding areas. Many races were fleeing in panic. The scene was extremely chaotic. In my opinion, if we wait here, that old thing from the Zhenlong imperial clan will definitely come to us. Lin Sun and Big Yellow immediately agreed with Shi's word. I'm just very puzzled. Why do the races living in this world humiliate and look down on human cultivators? As Lin Sun spoke, he stretched out his hand and grabbed a colorful ferocious bird across the air. Without asking anything, Lin Sun's divine consciousness entered the bird's spirit and started to sense it. After a while, Lin Sun finally got some vague answers. There were more than 10,000 races in the Zhenlong imperial clan. The Zhenlong imperial clan was the king of all races and ruled this world. About 100,000 years ago, the Mingluo Dragon Emperor, the clan leader of the Zhenlong imperial clan, suddenly issued an order. He viewed the humans as the sinners of the Zhenlong imperial clan and summoned all races to carry out a cruel and bloody suppression. In just 100 years, there were very few human forces living in the Zhenlong imperial clan. They had completely withered. It was not until the Mingluo Dragon Emperor left the Zhenlong Imperial clan and went to the Nirvana world that the Zhenlong Imperial clan stopped persecuting the humans. But at that time, the number of human cultivators who survived in the vast Zhenlong Imperial clan was no more than 100,000. They were completely reduced to the lowest race in the Zhenlong Imperial clan. Until now, they were still humiliated, trampled, and enslaved by all races. This fact sent a chill down Lin Sun's spine. 100,000 years ago, they slaughtered human cultivators in the entire Zhenlong Imperial clan. Why on earth? Big Yellow, do you know the Mingluo Dragon Emperor? Lin Sun asked. Yes, I do. Big Yellow answered without hesitation. This old worm once participated in the law battle of emperors. It is said that more than a dozen emperors from the Zhenlong Imperial clan who came with him were all killed by the Deer Formation Emperor. The Mingluo Dragon Emperor was seriously injured and fled back to the Zhenlong Imperial clan. Lin Sun was stunned. The law battle of emperors broke out in the ancient times 100,000 years ago. Chapter 23:12. Golden Leaf City was extremely large. It occupied an area of tens of thousands of miles. The streets were densely packed like cobwebs and the buildings were row upon row. However, Lin Sun and the others did not have to wait for long before a group of big shots from the true Ho Imperial clan arrived through the void. All of them were filled with murderous intent and caused a commotion in the city. The person in the lead was a purple-robed man with a long beard. His eyes were dark green and they shone with a ferocious and cold luster. His entire body was emitting the terrifying might of an emperor. They flew majestically from the sky above the city, appearing incomparably ostentatious and domineering. Someone actually dares to cause trouble in our city. I think he must be tired of living. A man with a head full of green hair said sinisterly. The others also revealed ferocious looks. In the True Dragon world, the True Dragon clan was the ruler. In Golden Leaf City, the True Ho clan was the ruler. Now, there were actually lowly humans coming to cause trouble. The people from the True Ho Imperial clan did not dare to believe it. Since when did the human scum dare to be so arrogant? They did not escape. Soon, they saw Lin Sun and the others standing on the city wall. They could not help but feel surprised. Don't act rashly. The purple-robed man in the lead frowned. He felt that something was amiss. Old ancestor, what are you afraid of? This is the territory of the true Ho lineage. Even if the emperor comes, he will have to lie down. The green-haired man said as he charged forward. Let me test the capabilities of those scum first. Whoosh. He moved his body and arrived before the city wall. He swept his gaze across Lin Sun and the others and said sinisterly, It's you scum. Before he finished speaking, she flicked his finger. Bang. The green-haired, arrogant, and hot-tempered fellow's body exploded in midair. Blood rained down like a waterfall. Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Big Yellow had calm expressions on their faces. In the distance, the purple-robed man and the other experts from the true Ho lineage were in disbelief. Killing without a word? They had never encountered such an arrogant enemy. The main character is here. Are you going to do it, or should I? She asked coldly. Let me do it. Lin Sun stepped forward and was about to say something when the purple-robed man bowed and said with fear and trepidation, I am Ho Tianxing from the true Ho lineage. Nice to meet you, seniors. The experts of the true Ho lineage around him were all stunned. What was going on? In the city in the distance, all of the beings who witnessed this scene were flabbergasted. The Battle Emperor Tianxing of the Zhen Ho lineage was bowing to those lowly humans? This was simply too much. If word of this got out, where would the Zhen Ho lineage put its face? However, there were many creatures who sensed that the situation wasn't right. Those human race experts might not be ordinary figures. Ho Tianxing's forehead was covered in sweat as he said fearfully, We were blind before. Please be magnanimous and forgive us, seniors. Big Yellow sneered, You're an Emperor realm existence, but you're so scared, how useless. Ho Tianqing lowered his head in embarrassment and became even more humble. Seniors, if you don't mind, then please follow me to the clan as guests. No matter what, it was my Zhen Ho bloodline that was in the wrong this time, and we naturally have to make up for it. Sure. Lin Sun nodded. Ho Tianqing was greatly relieved. He smiled warmly and said, Seniors, please follow me. Immediately, he led the way, and Lin Sun and the others followed behind. As the overlord that controlled a territory of 15 million miles, the true Ho imperial clan's territory was not in Goldenleaf City. Instead, it was located in a beautiful mountain range 800 miles away from Goldenleaf City. It could be said to be a famed blessed land. Divine radiance suffused the mountain with flowing waterfalls, flowing springs, ancient trees, and ancient palaces that stood towering in disorder could be seen everywhere. Ho Tianqing led Lin Sun and the others into a hall. After they were seated, Ho Tianqing apologized again and then asked about the purpose of their visit. Lin Sun had nothing to hide, so he told Ho Tianqing that he wanted to go to the True Dragon clan. What do you want to do there? Ho Tianqing couldn't help asking. Big Yellow said coldly, That's not something you can ask. Ho Tianqing was embarrassed and said, To tell you the truth, the True Dragon clan is located in the depths of the East Sea. It's called Dragon Palace, but we don't know where it is exactly. Seeing Lin Sun frowning, Ho Tianqing hurriedly said, But you can rest assured that we can contact the strong practitioners of the True Dragon clan. How long will it take? Lin Sun asked directly. 10 days, no, 3 days. Ho Tianqing said, In the True Dragon world, it's most difficult to invite the strong practitioners of the True Dragon bloodline. I hope you can understand. Lin Sun nodded and said, Thank you. Ho Tianqing smiled and said, As long as you don't mind the mistakes of the True Dragon bloodline, it's enough. Then Lin Sun asked some more questions. Ho Tianqing was very cooperative and told Lin Sun everything he knew. Lin Sun soon learned about the situation in the True Dragon world. But when Lin Sun asked about the reason why Minluo Dragon Emperor slaughtered humans, Ho Tianqing shook his head. 100,000 years ago, Minluo Dragon Emperor was the leader of the True Dragon clan and the only ruler of this world. Which clan dared to disobey his decision? Ho Tianqing said, It's said that there was a great conflict within the True Dragon clan, but it was finally suppressed by Minluo Dragon Emperor alone. Lin Sun asked, So the order to slaughter humans was Minluo Dragon Emperor's willful action? Ho Tianqing smiled awkwardly and said, I dare not comment on it. Soon, Lin Sun asked about the assembly of dragons and immortals held decades ago. Ho Tianqing knew something about it. The assembly of dragons was an unprecedented event of the True Dragon clan. It caused a sensation in the world when it was held. But only the True Dragon clan and the 9 Emperor clans under the command of the True Dragon clan could participate in this event. The 9 Emperor clans were related to the True Dragon clan by blood and respected the True Dragon clan. They were Ice Dragon, Tao Wu, Fushi, Paleo, Bishi, Baxia, Chunyo, Taunt, and Yazi. Lin Sun's expression changed when he learned this. When he was young, he got the inheritance of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, which was the same as the 9 Emperor clans. Was it a coincidence? Definitely not. When Ao Jintian and Yin Huan went to the ancient Desolation realm to pick up Zhao Jingxian, they said that the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon was a forbidden inheritance of the True Dragon bloodline. The inheritance of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon was left in the Xiao Empire by Lu Boya. Similarly, Zhao Jingxuan's mother, the Empress of the Xiao Empire, was a direct descendant of the True Dragon bloodline. According to Ao Jintian, Zhao Jingxuan's mother was the younger sister of the patriarch of the True Dragon bloodline. In other words, Zhao Jingxian also had the blood of the True Dragon bloodline. Because of this, Lin Sun agreed to let Zhao Jingxian leave with Ao Jintian and go to the True Dragon world to participate in the Alan Dragon's immortal gathering. According to Ho Tianxing, a shocking change had taken place during the 10,000 Dragon Immortal Gathering several decades ago. As a result, the true dragon bloodline had blocked all information about the gathering. So far, there were different opinions about what happened in the Alan Dragon's Immortal Gathering, and no one had a clear answer. From then on, the true dragon bloodline sent a group of elders to completely cut off the path between the true dragon world and the starry sky ancient path. Speaking of this, Ho Tianxing frowned and said, "At that time, all the clans in the world were wondering what happened in the Alan Dragon's Immortal Gathering that made the true dragon bloodline destroy the path to the starry sky ancient path. It was too abnormal." Big Yellow laughed and said, "Did the true dragon bloodline worry that someone would kill them from the starry sky ancient path? Or perhaps, the consequences of this unforeseen event will cause some future troubles, and these future troubles are related to the starry sky ancient path?" Lin Sun's eyelids twitched. He couldn't help thinking that the true dragon world rarely contacted the starry sky ancient path. At that time, Jing Xian went to the true dragon world from the starry sky ancient path to participate in the Alan Dragon's Immortal Gathering. However, something happened at the gathering. All this was too much of a coincidence. After chatting for a while, Ho Tianxing stood up and left. He said that he was going to contact the experts of the true dragon bloodline and ask them to wait here for 3 days. After Ho Tianxing left, Big Yellow snorted and said, "That guy pretended to be terrified just now." She also said, "After we entered this hall, there were many willpower spying on the situation here." Lin Sun nodded and said calmly, "It's impossible for an ancient imperial family that controls a territory of 30 million miles to bow down to us without testing." After pausing for a moment, he continued, "Moreover, the living beings of the true dragon world view humans as lowly slaves. An ancient power like the true Ho imperial clan is bound to not lower its head to us sincerely." "Then why did you agree to let him come?" Big Yellow said angrily. "Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If he obediently helps us contact the members of the true dragon tribe, I can't be bothered to bicker with them. However, if he is dishonest. But if he doesn't?" Lin Sun looked at Big Yellow, Shi, and Xia Ji with a smile and said indifferently, "I'll make them behave." They talked to each other through voice transmission, so they didn't have to worry about being overheard. At the same time, a group of old monsters of the true dragon bloodline gathered in an ancient hall that was covered with layers of restrictive power. Their expressions were cold and gloomy, and a cold light flickered in their eyes. They had already learned about what had happened in Golden Leaf City and the death of Quasi-Emperor Ho Kuei. Based on their earlier observation, they concluded that the man, 2 women, and a dog were all martial emperors of the human race. They couldn't tell how strong they were at the moment, but they were sure that they were not ordinary martial emperors since they could come to visit the true dragon bloodline so calmly. This made them extremely conflicted and hesitant. Chapter 23:13. The next morning. "Anyway, there are still 2 days left. Shall we go to Golden Leaf City and have a look?" Big Yellow said excitedly. "There are many rare creatures living in this place. There must be many delicious foods that can't be found in the outside world." Lin Sun was stunned and looked at Xia Ji and Shi. "It's okay to have a look," she said coldly. As for Xia Ji, she always followed Lin Sun's lead. "Then let's go there." Lin Sun made a decision. But as soon as he opened the door of the hall, he stopped and said, "It seems that something is wrong." As soon as he finished speaking, the fluctuations of restrictions that shot into the sky suddenly surged out from the surroundings of the courtyard they resided in, and it emanated dazzling radiance that covered this expanse of the sky. The obscure restriction was like a cage of the Great Way, trapping the courtyard where Lin Sun and the others were. "These bastards really have evil intentions," Big Yellow said gloomily. Lin Sun's dark eyes glanced around and said, "It seems that we have to pass this obstacle before we go to Golden Leaf City. Everyone, I'm really sorry." Ho Tianxing's voice sounded from outside the courtyard covered by the restriction. "If I let you leave like this, I really can't do it." It is difficult to see through the willows and willows, to cut through the linden roundworm mu ai? Sho sua? Yuluo? Wu san. His voice sounded helpless, but his tone was relaxed with a hint of complacency. Why are you talking nonsense with those human bastards? Activate the restriction and kill them. A cold shout sounded, full of killing intent. After all, he is a great human emperor. We should at least respect him. A deep voice sounded, friends of the human clan, as long as you can walk out of this restriction alive, I, Ho Zhongjiu, promise not to embarrass you and will be happy to help you contact the true dragon clan. If you die, you can only blame your incompetence. Boom. As soon as the voice fell, the restriction covering the courtyard was suddenly activated. The dense patterns roared and countless stars emerged. In an instant, Lin Sun and the others seemed to be in a starry sky. There were stars roaring from all directions, constantly burning and exploding, producing terrible destructive power. An emperor path forbidden formation. It seems that Ho Tianqing already had ill intentions when he brought us here yesterday. Big Yellow sneered and slapped with its claw to shatter a star that whistled toward it. Let me do it. Lin Sun took a deep breath. His dark eyes were deep, and he saw all the subtle changes in the starry sky. He began to break the formation. As a great grandmaster with superb attainments in spiritual tattoos, Lin Sun, who had reached the Ju-Di realm, was trapped by such a formation, which would be the biggest joke in the world. Boom! With a flick of his sleeve, countless rays of light surged into appearance and charged into the sky, and they transformed into numerous profound and obscure symbols that were embedded within the stars that covered the sky. Big Yellow, Shi, and Xia Ji guarded him. Outside the grand array, a bunch of real people? Jinwei Mi Mu Bo 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 Huang Chang Pair Forging? Play the role of an emperor? Is it commonly known as Hydri? Huan Ye's heart palpitated and froze to death. This formation was called 10,000 Stars Reversal, and it had been set up in their true phoenix since ancient times. Kuei Yen Bao Na Yen Zhang? Wu? Seagull Fan? Ji? Jia Mallet Sang? Lo Ji? Clam Glue Course Steed? Gamma? Pring Tao Pring? Vulgar? Gather? Huan? Play with mechanical Na? Ji Embarrassed? Wei Rin Xian? Neck Ji? Dizzy? An old man in a yellow robe was holding a yellow flag in his hand, and he was controlling the grand array calmly. Speaking of which, do you know where these human emperors came from? Why haven't we heard of them before? Someone asked. In the true dragon world, the human race had declined, and they were like lowly slaves that were trampled by the other races. Not to mention emperors, even martial saints were rare. But now, a man, 2 women, and a dog had appeared, and all of them had cultivation above the martial emperor realm. This was unbelievable. The path to the starry sky, ancient path, has long been destroyed by the true dragon race, and the path to the other side has always been controlled by the true dragon, black tortoise, white tiger, and immortal phoenix. Someone said, if these guys came from the other side, they would have alerted the true dragon race a long time ago. They wouldn't have come to us to ask about the true dragon race. What's the point of thinking so much? Let's just kill them and be done with it. More people didn't think so. Someone said with a smile, after we kill them, I'll use their bodies to refine monarch weapons. Don't you dare compete with me. Hearing that, was it true? An eunuch's thumb and Song Yao's urgent call? Was it true? Boom! An earth-shattering rumble suddenly resounded, and the old man holding the apricot yellow flag suddenly shouted, You're dead! Oh no, they're breaking the formation! His voice shook the clouds, and the old monsters were startled. That was an ancient formation that could trap and kill martial monarchs. How could it be broken? Elder Xiao, don't joke around. It's not funny at all, Ho Tianqing said with a gloomy face. It's not a joke, of course it's not funny. Suddenly, a ghastly and ferocious voice resounded from within the formation. Boom! The formation covering the courtyard suddenly exploded at this moment. A rain of light scattered and turbulence spread out. Almost at the same time, Big Yellow dashed out like a violent and dazzling lightning, and it swung its claws. Bang! The head of the old man holding the apricot yellow flag exploded, and he died on the spot. Bastard! Damn it! How is this possible? Are those real? Yao Dali Song Qianyue? Cherry blossoms? Mist cutter sword? Zhao Sui? Roundworm? Waste? Is it enough for camel trance yellow bottle? Most frightening of all was that the dog was too terrifying. With a wave of its paw, it had killed a great emperor from their clan. Big Yellow's dark eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent, and it bared its white and shiny teeth. I've never tasted real food in my life, Jane? Climbing, poking and playing boom. As it spoke, it moved horizontally across the void, bringing with it a sky full of Tao light that headed towards the true immortals. Yao the blind Ji by your courting death, an 8th-level great emperor shouted with a cold expression. He wielded a bone spear and charged towards Big Yellow. At the same time, the other true immortals? Yao Dali Song Qiu? Playing? Huanya Li Fei? Xian Yi? Ji? Zhu? Chun Pan Han? Really? Lin? Chubby heart slow hibiscus Zhao Luan choking eyes Zhilang? Huh? Yunren Bao? Zhuqiu Wei Lu? Di Chong Zhan Nuolai Nache? Arrive at school? Stomp on Jiu Bin? All screen? Huh? Which one of these true immortals? Separating the eunuchs and oysters, stir-fried rice, Song Xian, Huang Xian, Zheng? Mote provoke mortis? Kai Chong Na Ping Jilu? Unfortunately, their opponent this time was much scarier than they had expected. Boom! Big Yellow's claw slammed down, and thousands of rays of light rumbled like a tsunami. An unparalleled great emperor aura rolled out, shattering all the attacks. Clang! The bone spear of the 8th-level martial emperor realm cultivator almost shattered from the impact. The cultivator staggered, and before he could react, his chest was crushed by Goldie's claw. Crack! The 8th-level great emperor's bones shattered, and he screamed in pain as he was sent flying. The other old monsters were dumbstruck. Who would have thought that they would really? Jinwei Yikong Mu Blindo? Emperor and brother Hui? School? Puff. Meanwhile, she seized the opportunity of the chaos to attack. His figure was like an illusion as he suddenly appeared before an old freak, and then he waved his fair and slender hand, causing the old freak's body to instantly transform into ashes. He seemed to have been completely incinerated in an instant, and both his body and soul were obliterated. On the other side, Lin Sun and Xia Ji also rushed out. The former emitted a terrifying aura that belonged to Great Emperor Zhu Yin, causing the sky to wail and the clouds to collapse. The latter wielded a white bone spear that flickered like a flowing light. With a wave of his spear, he crushed the head of an old monster. Kill. At this moment, Big Yellow, Shi, Lin Sun, and Xia Ji no longer held back when they attacked. No matter who it was impossible for them to not be angry after being tricked like this. For a time, this place was in an uproar. The sound of the Tao rumbled, and a bloody stench spread. The nearby mountains collapsed and collapsed. Dazzling? Staff puppet? Major? It's only hot. Is this true? Living in harmony with each other? Thicket towering to the north? How many ships are there? Let a man hold a sword? Go to bed? Chao Ran Sui? Weiran? Pardon, in a short moment, this top-notch blessed land was already in a state of devastation, and there were scenes of collapse and ruin everywhere. Stop! Stop! Endless sorrowful roars resounded and reverberated between heaven and earth. I'm begging you, give me the truth? Keguan flounder Huan Shi dazzling Jian screen? Drapery and sleigh tricks, the heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pleas were incessant. In the end, Ho Tianxing was the only one left on the chaotic battlefield. It was also at this time that Lin Sun and the others stopped. Plop! Ho Tianxing, bathed in blood, knelt on the ground. Grief, regret, bitterness, panic, all kinds of emotions were rolling in his chest, and he was on the verge of breaking down. How could he have expected that just to deal with 3 thearchs of the human race and a dog would bring such a calamity to his race? After this battle, they were almost the truth? Eunuch Lioye's sword? Even if they could survive, they were doomed to lose their former glory and power in the future. Don't worry. You're still valuable and won't die like this. Whether your clan can be saved or not depends on whether you cooperate with us. Lin Sun said coldly. A gust of mountain wind blew, making Ho Tianqing shiver all over and sober up a little. Then he bowed his head bitterly. I'm willing to cooperate. Big Yellow, go and clean up the spoils. We'll leave right away. Lin Sun ordered. Boy, how dare you order me around? Big Yellow complained discontentedly, but he still went to do it obediently in the end. There was no other way. Lin Sun had a good senior brother. In fact, Lin Sun was also helpless. Whether it was Xia Ji or he was too embarrassed to order them around. Then, he could only trouble Big Yellow. Now, tell me how you contacted the people of the true dragon lineage. Chapter 23:14. Ho Tianqing didn't dare to play any more tricks and told Lin Sun everything he knew. Do you hate me? Lin Sun asked. Ho Tianqing said bitterly with disheveled hair. I dare not. Lin Sun said indifferently, It's useless to hate me. If we were defeated today, would you let us go? Ho Tianqing's face was stiff. There was nothing sadder than a dead heart. This was what he felt at the moment. Take care of yourself. Lin Sun left with Xia Solstice, and Big Yellow when Big Yellow returned with a full load. It wasn't until they disappeared that Ho Tianqing came back to his senses. Those human emperors, didn't kill them all? He was so confused that he couldn't come to himself for a long time. Why didn't you kill them all? Big Yellow couldn't help asking on the way. Were they a threat? Lin Sun asked. No. Big Yellow shook his head. We didn't even have a chance to take revenge. After all, they were just passers-by and couldn't stay in the true dragon world forever. Some people deserve to die, and some are innocent. I, Lin Sun, have never thought of killing indiscriminately since I started my cultivation. Lin Sun suddenly thought of the golden cicada youth who had made a great wish that all living beings in the world could become saints one day. What kind of breadth of mind was this? Compared to this, using bloody and cruel methods to slaughter some innocent people, what difference was there between that and the evil people that he loathed? So what if I'm the enemy of the whole world? Big Yellow asked suddenly. Then I'll ask for an invincible way. Lin Sun laughed. Big Yellow sneered. Invincible? Throughout the heavens and throughout the ages, who would dare claim to be invincible in the Grand Tao? Lin Sun said leisurely. Not in the past, but what if there will be in the future? Big Yellow laughed. Obviously, he didn't take Lin Sun's words seriously. She looked at Lin Sun thoughtfully. Lin Sun, who had the foundation of the immortal Supreme Road, might have a chance. Xia Solstice accompanied Lin Sun all the time. She was very quiet as long as she was with Lin Sun. Where are we going next? Big Yellow asked. East Sea. 1 day later. Really? South Sea with delicacies? For conch, mirage leap, zong, mistletoe, poison? What was truly inconceivable to the various races of the true dragon world was that this battle had almost flattened the true dragon race. Zhenwei Mi now Qi? Wound dissecting and snatching vinegar evenly, vulgar and vulgar, neon and neon remaining, but no matter how much the outside world inquired, the truth? Dazzling in the willows? Lonely Wei I Huang Kong Chong Yue 10 days later. East Sea. The blue sea looked like it had been washed, waves surging, stretching as far as the eye could see. In the true dragon world, the Eastern Sea was the most sacred territory, and it was just like the primordial world's central plains. The reason was that the ruler of the true dragon world, the true dragon bloodline, resided in the depths of the East Sea. The East Sea was incomparably vast. It was like a boundless ocean country, and there were many creatures living in it. Among them, The 9 great imperial clans that had attached themselves to the bloodline of the true dragon were the most powerful. They were viewed as the strongest 9 great imperial clans under the true dragon. At the shore of the East Sea, there were tens of thousands of cities and ferries scattered along the long and winding coastline. They were like pearls strung together on the coastline. Floating Cloud City. One of the cities on the East Sea. Early morning, Floating Cloud City's ferry. Numerous figures had been waiting at the ferry since a long time ago. On the surface of the sea not far from the ferry was an enormous treasured ship that belonged to the Taowu imperial clan. It was like a floating continent, and it was comparable to a small city. This treasured ship was sailing towards the Emerald Rainbow Island in the Eastern Sea. It was an island controlled by the Taowu imperial clan, and it was famous for its prosperous trade and prosperity. Every single day, living beings from all over the world would bring all sorts of precious treasures and cultivation resources to the Emerald Rainbow Island to conduct trade and exchange. So, the Emerald Rainbow Island had the reputation of being the place where all the races traded. Lin soon paid 3,000 true dragon coins and obtained a boarding command token, and then he followed the crowd onto the enormous treasured ship. According to the different prices on the treasured ship, the accommodations provided to the passengers were different as well, and some high-quality abodes even had to be booked in advance. When Lin soon bought the boarding command token, only the most ordinary room remained, and it was situated at the lowest point of the treasured ship. He didn't mind this at all. Although he still had his original appearance, the aura he was emitting was unique to the living beings of the Cloud Spirit clan. As for Big Yellow, Xia and Shi, they were all arranged to stay in the Tower of Infinity. Was the Cloud Spirit clan attached to the True Dragon clan? Was the Cloud Spirit clan attached to the True Dragon clan? Woo? Trade? Beg? Feed? Lin Sun wasn't heading to the Emerald Rainbow Island to trade for goods. Instead, he was going to contact a woman called Shui from the Taowu Imperial clan. Through Shui, he would be able to come into contact with the True Dragon clan. After entering his room, Lin Sun sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. Suddenly, a childish cry sounded from the room beside him. Following that, a cold voice berated, "Shut up!" Then, silence filled the room. The lowest point of the treasured ship was filled with many rooms. Although they were close to each other, the rooms were all covered in restrictive power that could isolate the probing of one's divine sense. Evidently, the neighboring room had activated a restrictive power that isolated the sounds coming from it. However, to someone of Lin Sun's level, the restrictive power was practically non-existent. Soon, he noticed something with his divine sense. In the room next door, 2 men with ugly faces and gray fur were sitting in front of a wooden table. On the wooden table, there was a young girl in her teens. Her hands and feet were tied up. Her clothes were ragged, and her hair was disheveled. Her large eyes were filled with tears and pain. She opened her mouth to scream, but was unable to let out a single sound. One of the skinny men was holding a silver blade. The snow-white blade sliced open the young girl's chest, causing captivating red blood to flow out. The other short and fat man held a porcelain bowl and caught the blood. With a greedy look in his eyes, he licked his lips and said, "Be careful. Don't kill her. The blood of a young human girl's heart is a first-rate delicacy." The skinny man laughed sinisterly. "Rest assured, a little girl like her can be sold for 3,000 true dragon coins on the Emerald Rainbow Island. I wouldn't be willing to kill her." As he spoke, he took out a medicinal pill and smeared it on the young girl's wound. After that, he picked her up and casually tossed her to a corner. The short and fat man split the bowl of blood into 2 and passed it to the skinny man. "Come, let's drink this cup of the young girl's heart blood together. I wish that we'll be able to make a fortune this time." Right at this moment, the door opened silently, and a seductive woman with a graceful figure and faintly discernible snow-white skin walked in. "How audacious of you to secretly drink blood! Aren't you afraid that boss will throw you into the East Sea to feed the fishes if he finds out?" The woman's voice was delicate and seductive. Even though she spoke like this, she snatched the porcelain bowl from the two men's hands and drank the blood in one gulp. The skinny man and the short and fat man glanced at each other and seemed to be relieved. Is there more? The woman licked her scarlet lips. She wore a black gauze that revealed a large expanse of plump snow-white skin that trembled dazzlingly. It made the eyes of the two men burn with desire. Yes, yes, yes. Sister May, please wait a moment. The skinny man said as he opened a treasure pouch and swiftly took out 5 or 6 figures. They were all human girls. The youngest was only 8 or 9 years old, while the oldest was only 13 or 14 years old. Their faces were immature and their clothes were ragged and dirty. They seemed to have gone through a lot of torture. Their bodies were covered in bruises, their expressions were numb, and their eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. They were like a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The dim and mottled light shone on their thin bodies, making them seem so fragile and pitiful. The seductive woman's eyes lit up as if she was choosing prey. She pointed at the youngest girl and said, "She's the one." The little girl had neat bangs and big eyes. She was only 8 or 9 years old and didn't know what she was going to face. Hearing this, she asked with hope, "Sister, do you want to buy me? Don't look at me because I'm young, but I know how to plant flowers and gather herbs. When I grow up, I'll definitely be a good slave." The seductive woman and the two men couldn't help but laugh. This lowly human thing already knew that she was a commodity from a young age and could be chosen at will? Interesting. Be good, sister is just thirsty. The seductive woman stretched out her hand and gestured at the little girl's chest. Later, I want to drink some of your blood. You're not allowed to cry. Drink blood. The little girl's face was pale and her eyes were filled with fear. Tears filled her eyes as she said, "Sister, can you not drink my blood?" With a plop, she knelt there. The other girls nearby also trembled and knelt on the ground. Their expressions were filled with uneasiness as they trembled. As a human, you are born with the original sin. You can be a slave, you can be a commodity, and you can also be food. Do you understand? The seductive woman said with a smile, "If you don't agree, you will die. Didn't your parents tell you that if you all die, the number of humans will become fewer and fewer? In the future, you might even become extinct. Sister May, they are just some trash. Why are you telling them this?" The skinny man said as he picked up the 8 or 9-year-old girl and pressed her down on the table. He tied her hands and feet with rough and rude actions. No matter how much the girl screamed and cried, he remained indifferent. Clang! He took out a shiny silver knife and pointed at the little girl's chest. "This little thing is too young and can't let out too much blood. Sister May, please choose a position." The seductive woman thought for a moment and said, "What if I want to taste this little girl's heart and liver?" The skinny man said with difficulty, "If you do that, she will die. A dead person is the most worthless. Even if you chop her into meat, she will only be worth 100 true dragon coins at most." This was like a butcher in front of a meat stall, treating little girls as livestock. "No?" The seductive woman frowned. "Since Sister May said she wants to have a taste, why are you still talking nonsense? Hurry up and do it," the short fat man at the side urged. The skinny man sighed lightly. He picked up the silver knife and stared at the little girl's chest. Chapter 23:15. On the table, the crying little girl saw the bright blade approaching. She seemed to collapse completely. She sobbed and said, "I miss my mother." This childish sob was like the most sad and desperate sound in the world. The thin man was indifferent. He exerted strength in his wrist, and the silver blade suddenly cut down. Bang! The wall suddenly broke. The thin man's silver blade seemed to be grasped by a big hand. With a turn of the wrist, the thin man's right wrist was cut off. Puff! Blood splashed like a waterfall. The thin man roared in pain, and his eyes suddenly looked towards the broken wall. The short and fat man holding the porcelain bowl and the charming black-veiled woman were also stunned. They didn't expect that an accident would happen at this critical moment. Lin Sun's figure came in from the broken wall. His black eyes were deep and cold. On the ground, the trembling and frightened young girls all raised their heads in bewilderment like frightened lambs. Lin Sun went straight to the wooden table. The little girl tied on the table was pale with tears streaming down her face. She sobbed and screamed, "I miss my mother. I don't want to die." Even with Lin Sun's current state of mind, his nose was sour, and an uncontrollable anger surged in his heart. Killing people was just a matter of life. However, these two men and one woman viewed these young human beings as slaves, as prey, as food. Their bloody and cruel means were worse than beasts. The atmosphere in the room was oppressive. Although Lin Sun had restrained his power, the breath he exuded still made it difficult for the two men and one woman to breathe. They were all shocked and angry. "Fellow practitioner of the Cloud Spirit clan, what do you want to do? Do you want a share of the profits?" The seductive woman glanced at Lin Sun and said in a charming tone. Lin Sun ignored her. He raised his hand to untie the little girl, picked her up and put her gently on the ground. He rubbed her little head and said softly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." His voice carried the power of the Great Way, which made the little girl calm down in an instant. The despair, fear in her heart were completely swept away like the darkness torn by the sun. The little girl timidly said, "Uncle, do you want to buy me as a slave? I can plant flowers and wash clothes. When I grow up, I will definitely be a good slave." The childish voice was full of hope, but it was like a soldering iron, burning Lin Sun's heart. What kind of trampling and suppression did the human clan of the true dragon world suffer to make these children develop the consciousness of being slaves from a young age? Seeing that Lin Sun saved the little girl, the seductive woman's face changed. She seemed to realize that something was wrong and said coldly, "These human slaves were purchased by my Green Bat clan at a great price. Friend, could it be that you intend to rob them?" "Robbery?" Lin Sun's eyes grew colder. He suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the seductive woman's neck. "What qualifications do you have for me to rob you?" Crack! The seductive woman's snow-white neck let out sounds of bones cracking. Her face became purplish as she shrieked. "This is the treasured ship of the Taowu Imperial clan. As long as I shout, the experts on the ship will be alerted." Whoosh! The thin man's figure rushed out of the room with incomparably fast speed. He had realized that something was wrong and wanted to ask for reinforcements. However, as soon as he moved, he was pressed to the ground with a bang. His body felt as if it was pressed by a mountain. Blood flowed out of his 7 apertures and his face was hideous. The short and fat man intended to help, but he was immediately intimidated by this scene. With an unsightly expression, he said, "Friend, it's just some human slaves. If you really want them, I can give them to you." From the beginning to the end, they didn't know why this man emitting the aura of the Cloud Spirit clan was so angry and why he attacked. This wasn't stupidity. It was just that, in their subconsciousness, humans were born to be slaves and could be slaughtered at will. This was a deep-rooted concept. Lin Sun couldn't tell if it was hatred or anger. It was stifled in his chest, and he couldn't vent it. Bang! The short and fat man was also suppressed. He knelt on the ground. His facial features were twisted and his body showed signs of cracking. He roared hoarsely, "What do you want to do?" Lin Sun went silent for a moment before he took a deep breath and said calmly, "I'm a human as well. Understand?" It was merely a single sentence, yet it caused the pupils of the two men and woman to dilate, and then they were extremely furious. When did a human bastard dare to attack us? Isn't he afraid of being slaughtered? As he gazed at the astonishment and anger in their eyes, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile. But his smile was indescribably icy cold. He gazed at the young women who were at a loss. He gazed at their panicked, helpless, and trembling expressions, and he gazed at the numerous injuries on their bodies. In the true dragon world, humans deserved to be slaves for eternity? The face of the seductive woman whose neck was choked by Lin Sun was livid, and she spoke with resentment. Let us go and we'll take it as nothing happened today. Otherwise, even if we die, it'll be impossible for all of you to leave this treasured vessel alive. Crack! Her neck was twisted off, her soul shattered, and her body was incinerated inch by inch before transforming into ashes that rustled and drifted down. The thin man and the short and fat man were terrified as if they had fallen into an ice cave. They had never seen such a bold human since they started their cultivation. Lin Sun waved his sleeves, and the two strongmen of the bloodthirsty Green Bats clan also turned into ashes. Witnessing this scene, the young women of the human clan seemed to wake up from a dream, and a little hope appeared in their desperate and gloomy eyes. Uncle, are you really a human? The little girl of 8 or 9 years old who was rescued by Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Yes. Lin Sun nodded. The little girl asked doubtfully, but why are you so powerful instead of becoming a slave? My mother said that if we don't obediently become slaves, we'll be killed. If we dare to resist, we'll be exterminated. Obviously, she didn't understand why anyone in this world dared to kill those superior creatures. Lin Sun looked at the other girls and found that they didn't jump, cheer, or get excited after being rescued. What they had was the same doubt. They didn't understand why Lin Sun dared to kill those bloodthirsty Green Bats clan. This was not numbness or resignation, but the idea of being enslaved had long been rooted in their hearts. This was no doubt very horrifying and terrifying. It was simply unimaginable on the starry sky ancient path. Uncle will take you away, okay? Lin Sun took a deep breath and said softly. No one objected, and they were all very obedient. Perhaps they subconsciously thought that they might be rescued this time, but they couldn't get rid of the fate of becoming slaves, goods, and food in the future. Lin Sun suppressed the discomfort in his heart and took all the little girls into the Tower of Endless. Then, he sent a voice transmission to Big Yellow, asking it to take good care of these girls. She and Big Yellow were angry after learning what happened to these girls. Even Xia Ji, who had never cared about worldly affairs, showed a rare murderous look. Lin Sun sat alone in the room. Squeak! Not long after, the door was pushed open, and a skinny middle-aged man walked in. When he saw Lin Sun, he couldn't help but be stunned. They are all dead, but it's not enough. Lin Sun looked at him. His deep eyes were like a great abyss that could swallow souls, which shocked the skinny middle-aged man at once. After a while, the skinny middle-aged man turned into ashes and dissipated. From his memory, Lin Sun had obtained some things that he wanted to know. He pushed the door open and went out. Outside the room was a long and narrow corridor. It was dozens of feet wide, and both sides of the corridor were full of rooms. Lin Sun walked on the corridor with his hands behind his back. He met many creatures along the way, but none of them could detect his existence. The second level of the Emperor realm, formless like Tao. When Lin Sun returned to his room, a total of 15 bloodthirsty green bats in the 19 rooms on the lowest floor of the treasure ship, regardless of their cultivation, had disappeared from the world. Lin Sun saved another batch of humans. There were ignorant children, strong young men, and young women in their prime. There were hundreds of them. Some of these people were bought by the bloodthirsty green bats from different territories of the true dragon world, and some were directly plundered. They were all carefully selected. They were all young and children, and there were no old, disabled, sick, or weak people. If Lin Sun hadn't appeared, these people would have been sent to the Green Rainbow Island, where there was a special market for selling slaves. These people would be turned into goods for the various races to choose from. The true dragon world is really disgusting. Until he returned to his room, Lin Sun was still a little depressed when he thought of what had happened before. Naturally, he thought of the culprit who caused all this, Minluo Dragon Emperor. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. On the road of cultivation, killing and bloodshed could be seen everywhere. However, if it was just a real fight and struggle, it would be fine. What Lin soon couldn't bear was that the human tribe was trampled, humiliated, and slaughtered as lowly slaves. After all, he was also a human tribe. In the 9-region battlefield, the cultivators of the ancient Desolation realm were regarded as two-legged sheep, but it was not a race war, but a confrontation between camps. Yet now, in the true dragon world, the human race was being ridden around by the myriad of races, and they were acting tyrannically. They were like livestock that seized and trampled on without restraint. As a human tribe, how could Lin Sun accept it? He was very clear that with his current strength, it was destined to be extremely difficult to reverse all this. But as long as he encountered it, he would never ignore it. According to the memory of that guy, there should be another expert of the bloodthirsty green bats. Lin Sun frowned. This treasure ship was extremely huge, like a small city. It was divided into 3 floors, and there was even a bustling street in the middle floor, with shops, restaurants, casinos, discussion arenas, and everything that one should expect. Lin Sun suspected that the fish that escaped the net was very likely to go to the middle floor of the treasure ship. At the same time, in a restaurant on the 2nd floor of the treasure ship, a crafty-looking man who was drinking suddenly trembled all over and his face changed greatly. This was the bone plate of his son's life soul, which he had always carried with him. But now it suddenly broke. He suddenly got up and hurried downstairs. However, just when he was halfway down, he realized something and stopped where he was, with a gloomy look on his face. Chapter 23:16. On the top floor of the treasured ship, there was a magnificent palace. This was the territory of the Taowu Imperial clan. You said your son was killed on the ship of the Taowu Imperial clan? A man wearing a bright yellow robe and a feathered crown was lazily sitting on a throne. Golden cross-shaped symbols appeared in his pupils. It was an incomparably terrifying sight. He was Zheng, a pure-blooded descendant of the Taowu Imperial clan. He was a peerless character that was only a step away from the Emperor realm. In the palace, the man from the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan knelt on the ground with a mournful expression. Young master, there's no mistake. Look, this is my son's bone plate. He took out the broken life soul bone plate. And Zheng frowned. With a bang, he shattered the teacup in his hand. With a gloomy expression, he said coldly, I'm curious. Which bastard dares to commit murder on the ship? Next to him, a gray-clothed old man said in a low voice, Young master, just now, a steward in charge of the treasured ship's teleportation sent a message. He said that the 9th room at the bottom of the treasured ship had a crack in the restrictive power covering it. After a short pause, the old man continued, A bloodthirsty Green Bat clan's expert lives next to the 9th room. And Zheng's gaze was cold. Investigate this matter. If someone really committed murder, skin him alive and throw him into the sea. The gray-clothed old man nodded and left hurriedly with a dozen Taowu experts. Thank you, young master. Thank you. The man from the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan showed gratitude. And Zheng said indifferently, I'm not helping you. I'm just maintaining the rules of the Taowu clan. In the 9th room at the bottom of the treasured ship, after the gray-clothed old man arrived with a group of experts, he thought for a moment and asked, Who lives here? People from the Cloud Spirit clan. An expert answered quickly. Oh, the gray-clothed old man said, Knock on the door. Immediately, an expert stepped forward and raised his hand to knock on the door. However, the tightly closed door opened without a sound. In the room, Lin Sun was sitting in front of a table and drinking wine. He asked without raising his head, What's the matter? The gray-clothed old man swept his gaze around and noticed the hole on the wall. He immediately frowned and said, You did that? Lin Sun threw out a storage bag. I know the rules. There are 3,000 true dragon coins inside. That's enough to compensate you. The gray-clothed old man said expressionlessly, Did you commit murder? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and realized that the matter had been leaked. He didn't hide it and said, Yes. The gray-clothed old man and others were all stunned. They didn't expect Lin Sun to be so frank. Do you have anything else to say? The gray-clothed old man stared at Lin Sun with a gloomy look. If not, just surrender. I don't think I broke the order on the ship, Lin Sun said casually. Lin said Island. I didn't go. Lin Mountain. Of Taowu of Sea. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't know the way, he wouldn't have spent so much money to travel by boat. But you killed the experts of the bloodthirsty Green Spirit clan. The gray-clothed old man said coldly. The rule of the treasure ship is that you can't kill without permission. Lin Sun asked, why didn't you show up when those guys wanted to kill a human girl? Human clan? The gray-clothed old man sneered. Human clan is like livestock. Anyone can slaughter them at will. Even if I knew, I wouldn't care. Lin Sun's eyes were cold. So you don't have to follow the rules of the Taowu clan? The gray-clothed old man couldn't help frowning. Nonsense. How can human clan be qualified to follow the rules of our Taowu clan? Lin Sun said, then I might as well tell you. You don't deserve to follow the rules of this ship. And you'd better disappear now. After that, the door closed silently, leaving the gray-clothed old man and his companions outside. Seeing this, the faces of these strong Taowu clan darkened. They all looked at the gray-clothed old man. The gray-clothed old man snorted coldly, what are you waiting for? Do it. A burly man tried to kick the door, but before he could do so, his right leg broke with a cracking sound. He staggered and knelt on the ground, letting out a muffled cry of pain. The gray-clothed old man's eyelids twitched. He didn't notice how Lin Sun did it. How dare you? How dare you be so arrogant on our ship? You're courting death. The other strong Taowu clan were furious. Some of them rushed up again, trying to break the door and kill their way in. But with a bang, 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 with a muffled sound, these strong Taowu clan were all pressed to the ground, lying in disorder and wailing. This made the gray-clothed old man gasp and realize that he had met a tough opponent. Friend, do you know the consequences of doing this? He gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice, those who offend our Taowu clan never end well. The door opened quietly. Lin Sun stood there with deep black eyes, neither sad nor happy. Do you know the consequences of offending me? The gray-clothed old man laughed angrily. Fine, just you wait. With that, he flicked his sleeves and was about to leave. But just as he took a step forward, a large hand grabbed his neck from behind and lifted him up like a chicken. What are you trying to do? The gray-clothed old man was shocked. He was a peak quasi-emperor, but he didn't even have time to react. He was stunned. I'm going to see the true master of this ship. As Lin Sun spoke, he carried the gray-clothed old man and walked into the distance. In the long passageway, countless living beings in the densely packed rooms were alarmed. They stuck their heads out to see what was going on. When they saw this, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. This guy from the Cloud Spirit clan was too cruel. He actually dared to attack an expert of the Taowu clan. In the True Dragon realm, apart from the True Dragon clan, the 9 great imperial clans attached to the True Dragon clan were also terrifying existences that no one dared to offend. And the Taowu clan was one of the 9 great imperial clans. Ignoring the various gazes, Lin Sun carried the gray-clothed old man and walked straight to the first floor of the treasured ship. Along the way, he attracted countless surprised gazes. In the distance, a magnificent palace came into view. Many guards were stationed in front of the palace. All of them were armed with weapons and gave off ferocious auras. But Lin Sun didn't stop. He continued walking towards the palace. Behind him, there were countless living beings from various clans watching. Clearly, Lin Sun's actions had caused a commotion on the ship. Stop! You dare to attack Steward Fu? The guards stationed outside the palace also noticed Lin Sun walking over. When they saw the gray-clothed old man being carried by Lin Sun, they almost didn't dare to believe their eyes. Rumble! But before they could do anything, as Lin Sun walked over, a formless and terrifying oppressive force spread out. It immediately suppressed them to the ground. Not a single one of them could stand. So powerful. When did the Cloud Spirit clan have such a ruthless person? A wave of exclamations resounded in the distance. The experts who followed Lin Sun were all extremely shocked. The guards on the treasured ship were all above the Saint realm. Some of the more powerful ones were even Saint Kings. In the eyes of the experts from various clans, they could be said to be extremely terrifying existences. But in Lin Sun's eyes, they were simply not worth a mention. In the palace, Zheng, who was sitting on the throne and drinking tea while waiting for news, frowned. He noticed the unusual movement outside the palace immediately. He suddenly raised his head and looked over. He saw Lin Sun, who carried the gray-clothed old man into the palace. In an instant, he realized something was wrong. He stood up and said with a gloomy face, "My friend, what are you trying to do?" Bang! Lin Sun threw the gray-clothed old man out like he was throwing trash. Then, he swept his gaze around and saw the man from the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan. The latter had a confused look on his face. It seemed that he still didn't know what had happened. "So the fish that escaped the net is here," said Lin Sun as he flicked his finger. The body of the bloodthirsty Green Bat race male that was still completely bewildered suddenly died, and he transformed into ashes that scattered all over the ground. He died without knowing why or how he died. Lin Sun then looked at Zheng and said, "Are you the owner of this ship?" In the face of Lin Sun's deep black eyes, Zheng, who had always been proud and conceited, was frightened. He had goosebumps all over his body as if he was being stared at by the god of death. He took a deep breath and said, "This ship belongs to my Tao clan. I'm in charge of this voyage. My friend, you should know what the name Tao clan means." Lin Sun said indifferently, "Those bastards from the bloodthirsty Green Spirit clan were all killed by me. Do you still want to do things according to the rules?" The atmosphere was oppressive, and Zheng felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation in his heart. His expression was gloomy. Since he was a child, he had never been threatened like this. But he was even more clear that the person who dared to act like this despite knowing that this was the treasure ship of the Tao clan was definitely not a good person. He took a deep breath, glanced outside the palace and shouted, "Ask those onlookers to get lost." His voice was like a thunderclap. Outside the palace, there was a sudden commotion. Those who intended to watch the fun, in the face of the furious Zheng, all retreated and soon disappeared. Zheng tidied up his clothes and said with a forced smile, "Senior, let's talk it over. If I offended you before, I'm here to apologize to you." As he said, he bowed deeply. Even though Lin Sun looked very young, Zheng was not sure whether this guy was an old monster who had lived for countless years, so he called him Senior. Lin Sun stared at Zheng for a moment and said, "Do you know Shui?" Zheng was stunned, and then he straightened up and said, "That's my elder sister. Shui. She was the strongest person in the young generation of the Tao clan, a proud girl in the 9 imperial clans, and one of the few peerless quasi-emperors in the true dragon world. In the Tao clan, Shui's status was extremely high, far beyond his younger brother. Lin Sun asked, "Do you know where the dragon palace of the true dragon clan is?" Chapter 23:17. The Bai, an imperial clan, was a vassal of the true dragon and one of the 9 imperial clans, but they couldn't go to the dragon palace without an invitation. From this, it could be seen how lofty the status of the true dragon clan was in this world, just like a god. "Is Shui on the Green Rainbow Island?" asked Lin Sun. Zheng nodded. "She has been sitting on the Green Rainbow Island in the past 10 years. She said that she wanted to collect enough divine materials to ask the elders of the Xianyan clan to refine a furnace of divine medicine for her." Lin Sun said, "When we arrive at the Green Rainbow Island, take me to see her, and I'll let bygones be bygones." After that, he sat down in front of the table and said, "I'll stay here before we arrive. You don't mind, do you?" Zheng felt bitter in his heart. How could he dare to mind? He agreed without hesitation. After thinking for a while, Zheng ordered outside the hall, "Come on, bring me the divine wine and delicacies I've collected. I want to entertain this distinguished guest well." Soon, a variety of spiritual fruits and snacks were presented one by one. There was also the monkey wine brewed by the Spirit Monkey clan, which had been sealed for 10,000 years. It was known as the divine wine and was extremely precious. In addition, there was also the purple flower nectar refined by the Purple Wing Bee clan, the 1,000 cloud dew collected by the Flying Dream clan, the 10,000 green jade liquid refined by the Green Spirit clan from tens of thousands of spiritual woods. There were dozens of them, each of which was a rare treasure unique to each clan. At this moment, they were all taken by Zheng to entertain Lin Sun. This surprised Lin Sun. "I made you lose face on this ship. Don't you hate me?" And Zheng answered honestly, "I hate you, but I'm not qualified to take revenge. I can only admit defeat." With that, he smiled bitterly. "Senior, don't worry. I'm treating you so warmly because I want to entertain you well. I don't want to cause any more trouble." Lin Sun nodded and poured a cup of monkey wine. A strong and refreshing aroma of wine immediately spread out. The amber-like wine was surging with wisps of light, which was extremely magical. He drained the wine in one gulp and quietly savored it. Then, he nodded and said, "Good wine." This monkey wine wasn't something an ordinary wine could compare to. Not only did it taste sweet and moist, it also contained a unique rich spirit energy within it, causing its taste to be incomparably wonderful. And Zheng thought to himself, "Of course it's been a long time. Even a small cup is priceless. Normally, I wouldn't even be willing to take it out to drink." Lin Sun tasted the purple flower nectar again. Feeling the soft and fragrant nectar melting in his mouth, Lin Sun couldn't help nodding his head. Delicious. She is Ji and she would definitely like this. Then, Lin Sun tasted other delicacies and liquors, all of which had unique flavors and were excellent delicacies, which made Lin Sun secretly praise them. "Come, let me offer a toast to Senior." And Zheng poured himself a cup of monkey wine and said respectfully. Lin Sun glanced at him, raised his cup from a distance, and drained it. And Zheng breathed a sigh of relief and drank up the wine in his cup. He was absolutely sure that Lin Sun did not intend to make things worse. That was enough. And Zheng said, "Senior, we have to pass through 19 spatial boundaries on our way to the Emerald Rainbow Island. It is estimated that we will arrive in 7 days. During this period, if you have any requests, feel free to let me know. As long as I can satisfy it, I will definitely not neglect it." Lin Sun nodded his head. The so-called spatial boundaries were actually folded spaces distributed on the East Sea, like large and small spatial tunnels. The East Sea was incomparably vast, and there were spatial boundaries everywhere. If one wandered around carelessly, it was very likely that one would be lost in the vast East Sea. Even Emperor Realm experts did not dare to wander around carelessly. Those spatial boundaries were like transmission formations. If one didn't know the way, once he entered rashly, it was very likely that he would be teleported to an unknown place and would never be able to return. It wasn't like something like this hadn't happened before. A few days passed quickly, and the journey was peaceful. The death of the bloodthirsty Greenbat clan had long been suppressed by the Bai and Imperial clan, and no one dared to talk about it anymore. But everyone knew that this time, the Bai and Imperial clan had encountered a ruthless person. Many experts even guessed that the Bai and Imperial clan would definitely not swallow the insult and humiliation silently, and when they arrived at the Emerald Rainbow Island, it would perhaps be the time for them to take revenge. However, Lin Sun seemed to be completely unaware of all this, and Zheng had never revealed the slightest trace of displeasure or hostility. On this day, Lin Sun arrived outside the hall and leaned on the railing as he gazed into the distance, and he saw the boundless blue sea in the distance. The waves rose and fell, and the sea and sky formed a line, and it was a rather magnificent sight. The treasured ship flew on the surface of the sea, and waves rose into the sky. But strangely, on this vast and calm surface of the sea, there wasn't a single living being in the sea. Moreover, there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of vitality in the sea. Lin soon probed with his divine sense, and he noticed that the deeper he went, the darker and colder it became. Not to mention living beings like fish and shrimps, even seaweed and corals couldn't be seen in the sea. When his divine sense probed 27 kilometers into the sea, a strange icy cold current silently suffused the air, and it caused Lin soon to suddenly have a feeling of extreme danger. Without hesitation, he withdrew his divine sense. At the moment when he withdrew his divine sense, he seemed to see a pair of eyes quietly open in the depths of the boundless sea. Sure enough, under the East Sea is a forbidden zone for life, full of great horror. Lin soon narrowed his black eyes slightly. When he was on the ship, he had learned that this vast and boundless East Sea had another name, Sea of Sin. The area below 27 kilometers in the Sea of Sin was a forbidden zone for life, without any vitality, just like a place of death and extinction. Since ancient times, all living beings who dived into the area below 27 kilometers in the sea, no matter how strong or weak they were, would be annihilated and could no longer come out alive. There were some extraordinary Emperor Realm seniors that tried all sorts of methods to investigate, but in the end, none of them were able to find out exactly what sort of strange thing was hidden beneath the surface of the water. Even in history, many Emperor Realm experts had been killed in the Forbidden Zone for life. Lin Sun was skeptical before, but after the investigation just now, he couldn't help but feel awestruck and realize the horror of the Forbidden Zone for life. Boom! Not far away there was a wave of power, and Zheng, who had the cultivation of the Quasi-Emperor Realm, was practicing a secret method. His body was steaming with blood and qi, and a Taoist seal was condensed in front of him. The Taoist seal was full of strong and bright Great Way laws, and then it evolved into the shadow of a Baian. As Zheng operated his cultivation, the Taoist seal of the Baian also radiated all kinds of incredible power, which was extremely amazing. Lin soon recognized at a glance that what Zheng displayed was exactly the same as the Baian seal, one of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon that he had mastered. This made Lin soon more certain that the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon, obtained by Master Lu, absolutely had an origin beyond his imagination. Baian? Baian? Yue and I. Baian? Baian? Yunlong 3. The 9 kinds of changes of the 9 changes of Calamity Dragon happened to correspond to the 9 Emperor clans of the True Dragon. How could this be a coincidence? However, after staring at Zheng, who was practicing for a moment, Lin Sun suddenly felt that something was wrong. The power of Zheng's Baian seal was indeed terrifying, and it was also the true inheritance of the Baian seal. It was very mature and had extraordinary attainment, but the only thing it lacked was a unique charm, or a kind of spirituality. It felt like a Baian, although it had monstrous power. It was tied up by a heavy shackle. At first, Lin Sun thought that Zheng's cultivation of the Baian seal lacked some real tempering. But after careful observation for a long time, Lin Sun finally dared to conclude that the Baian seal, displayed by Zheng, was obviously castrated. It only had the power to suppress mountains and rivers, but it lacked the most core spirituality. This was not the problem of cultivation, but the problem of the inheritance Zheng had obtained. Lin Sun couldn't believe it. Zheng was a pure-blood descendant of the Baian Emperor clan, and the Baian seal must be the supreme inheritance of his clan. How could there be such a big defect? Senior, did my cultivation disturb you? In the distance, Zheng looked at Lin Sun. Just now, he felt uncomfortable under Lin Sun's gaze. Lin Sun shook his head and said, I just feel that there seems to be some problem with the cultivation you're practicing. Zheng was stunned. Obviously, he didn't understand Lin Sun's words. He cupped his fists and said, Junior's cultivation is shallow. I've made a fool of myself. This is not a problem of cultivation, but a problem of the inheritance. Seeing that Zheng had been taking good care of him these days, Lin soon gave him some advice. If you continue to cultivate like this, I'm afraid that you can only stop at the quasi-emperor realm on the road of the great Tao. Then, he turned around and walked into the main hall. This time, he killed the experts of the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan on the ship, which made Zheng and the other experts of the Bai and Emperor clan lose face. When they arrived at the Green Rainbow Island, they might suffer the revenge of the Bai and Emperor clan. Because of this, he held back and didn't explain to Zheng at this time. After all, he didn't know whether Zheng was a friend or an emperor. Seeing Lin soon enter the main hall, Zheng's expression flickered. That guy actually dared to say that there was a problem with his inheritance? That was simply denying the great Tao that he had pursued his entire life. One must know that the Bai and Seal was the most supreme inheritance of the Bai and Emperor clan. If there was a problem with it, wouldn't it mean that there was a problem with the inheritance that their entire clan cultivated? That was clearly impossible. If there was a defect in the inheritance, how could their Bai and Emperor clan have existed since ancient times and become one of the 9 great Emperor clans? Besides, their Bai and Emperor clan did not lack old monsters in the Bai and Emperor realm. If there was a defect in the inheritance, how could those old monsters become emperors? After pondering for a long time, Zheng took a deep breath and thought to himself, "You're just an expert of the Cloud Spirit clan. No matter how powerful you are, how could you possibly know the secret of our Bai and Emperor clan's inheritance?" Clearly, he didn't believe Lin Sun at all. Chapter 23:18. Senior, may I be so bold as to ask, have you already become a martial emperor? Zheng walked into the hall. After hesitating for a long time, he couldn't help asking the question that had been hidden in his heart for many days. Lin Sun nodded. Zheng looked as if he had been freed. He revealed a relaxed expression and said, "If that's the case, then I can explain to the clan." "Explain what?" Lin Sun was surprised. Zheng said respectfully, "In the dragon world, there is an unwritten rule that an emperor should not be humiliated. If the clan knew that I was defeated by you this time, they wouldn't make such a big fuss about it. As for those dead bloodthirsty green bats, Zheng didn't even bother to mention them. Offending an emperor? They deserved to die. Speaking of it, Zheng even felt slight hatred for those bloodthirsty green bat clan's experts. If it wasn't for them provoking such an emperor-level existence, how could their Meng imperial clan possibly have been implicated? Of course, it didn't mean that the Bai and imperial clan was afraid of an emperor. Zheng knew very well how powerful an emperor was. Even if he went back to ask for help this time, with his status in the clan, he wouldn't be able to get help. Instead, he would be reprimanded and punished because he had offended an emperor. I've long heard that the Bai and imperial clan can distinguish right from wrong and abide by the rules. Your performance didn't let me down, Lin Sun said. Zheng said, rules are relative after all. An emperor like you can already override the rules. After a pause, he smiled and said, however, it's precisely because of the rules that the Bai and imperial clan can make the Green Rainbow Island a place of trade. After all, fairness and rules are the most important in trade. Otherwise, everything will be in chaos. Lin Sun said, when I see in Shui, we'll be even. Zheng cupped his hands. Thank you, senior. No matter how proud and conceited Zheng was, he couldn't raise his head in front of a great emperor. At the same time, he felt lucky that he didn't neglect the other these days. Otherwise, the consequences would be much more serious. 7 days later, the treasure ship arrived at the Green Rainbow Island smoothly. It was said to be an island, yet it was actually like a piece of land that covered an area of a few tens of thousands of kilometers. It was covered in all sorts of verdant ancient trees, and there were strands of auspicious light that transformed into divine rainbows that revolved in the sky above the island, causing it to be a gorgeous and resplendent sight. There was a dense expanse of treasured vessels entering and exiting the island a long time ago, and the figures of the various races moved up and down the island, causing it to seem extremely prosperous and bustling. When the treasure ship of the Bai and Imperial clan arrived, Zheng took the initiative to get up and went to the island with Lin. On the way, he introduced the situation of the Green Rainbow Island to Lin Sun. On the Jade Rainbow Celestial Island, there would be beings from all over the world coming here every day. Some came to buy treasures, some came to sell treasures. On the other hand, the Jade Rainbow Isle was like an extremely enormous marketplace that gathered the special products of the myriad of clans in the world. No matter if it was divine materials, medicinal pills, spirit materials, precious treasures, cultivation techniques, inheritances, and various other treasures, it could be said to have everything one could wish for. It could be said that all the buyers that came to Jade Rainbow Isle would be able to return from a fruitful journey, and all the sellers would be able to obtain extremely satisfying gains. Here, there were all kinds of rare goods and treasures in the world. As long as you had enough true dragon coins, there was nothing you couldn't buy. If there was, it meant that you didn't have enough true dragon coins. Along the way, Lin soon saw that the streets of the island were like a net, the houses were like a forest, and there were all kinds of stalls everywhere. The stalls were full of all kinds of strange treasures. Shouts and cries sounded one after another. Creatures from all over the world shuttled back and forth. The scene could be described as people rubbing shoulders and sweating like rain. The world is bustling for profit. The world is bustling for profit. It's rare that this place is in good order and prosperous. It's really good. Lin Sun couldn't help sighing with emotion. And Zheng immediately laughed. He said proudly, "Senior, this is the way our Taowu Imperial clan conducts ourselves." My clan's primogenitor once left behind a sentence. The Taowu Imperial clan should act according to the rules. It could be said that the word rules is the guiding principle of our clan. Lin Sun asked, "But why doesn't this rule apply to the human clan?" And Zheng was dumbfounded. He didn't know what Lin Sun's attitude was. After thinking for a while, he said, "The reason why humans are so lowly is that we are too weak. The weak are destined to follow the rules." Lin Sun didn't argue with him. He said, "In my opinion, sooner or later, everything will change." And Zheng nodded. Obviously, he didn't agree with Lin Sun at all. Lin Sun didn't want to say anything more. Wanting to change all of this wasn't something that could be resolved with just a few words. On the westernmost side of the island was a rolling green mountain range. It was filled with chaotic chi and auspicious clouds. It was a rare blessed land. This mountain was called Rainbow Reflection. There were many caves and palaces on the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. It was the territory of the Bai and Imperial clan. The residence of my Taowu Imperial clan is located in the Spirit Shell Secret Realm, 9 million kilometers away from the Jade Rainbow Deity Island. On the Jade Rainbow Deity Island, there are 4 martial emperor elders of my clan, as well as a rotating island master. Arriving in front of the Rainbow Reflection Mountain, Zheng said, "Every single island master needs to be stationed here for 100 years. Firstly, it is to temper one's cultivation in the affairs of the world. Secondly, as the island master, one can obtain the most abundant cultivation resources. The island lord on duty is in Shui." As he spoke, he came to the mountain gate, took out his nameplate, and smoothly led Lin Sun into the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. Finally, they arrived at an ancient courtyard. And Zheng said, "Senior, this is my residence. Please wait here for a moment. I'll go find Senior's sister and Shui." Lin Sun nodded. Lin Sun nodded and sat on a stone bench in the courtyard. Then, he began to meditate. And Zheng was a little surprised. This was equal to the territory of the Bai and Imperial clan, and there were 4 Emperor Realm Elders on the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. Didn't this senior worry about being betrayed? After thinking about it, Zheng cupped his hands and left. Emperor Realm Elders could not be humiliated. This was also a rule. At least the Bai and Imperial clan had always believed in rules. Lin Sun didn't even lift his eyelids until Zheng left. Long before he entered Rainbow Echo Mountain, his enormous willpower had already sensed that there were 4 Emperor realms here. One was at the 6th level of the Emperor realm, 2 were at the 5th level of the Emperor realm, and 1 was at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. In addition, this place was covered with an Emperor rank killing formation. This kind of power was indeed terrifying enough to deter any thief. But for Lin Sun, it was not a threat at all. Not long after, Zheng returned with a helpless face and said embarrassedly, "Senior, Shui is in closed-door cultivation. It will take her at least 10 days to finish." Lin Sun frowned and said, "At least 10 days? Well, I'll wait." He sighed in his heart. Was it so difficult to meet the Dragon Clan? Zheng said in a low voice, "Senior, it should be the first time you come to the Rainbow Island. How about I accompany you?" Lin Sun thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Zheng's spirit was lifted. "Senior, the Jade Rainbow Celestial Island gathers treasures from all over the world. Almost all treasures in this world can be found here. Maybe there is something that Senior needs." As he said, he took Lin Sun out of the courtyard and went out of the snow reflection mountain. "Is there pure and turbid star soul sand?" Lin Sun asked casually. Zheng was stunned. This kind of divine item can be considered a rare treasure that can only be found by luck. It has appeared a few times in the past, but it was immediately bought by someone at a high price. Lin Sun nodded and asked again, "Tai Chu? Pan? Wu Jun?" Zheng hesitated for a long time and said with a wry smile, "This is a treasure rarer than pure and turbid star soul sand. Whether you can see it or not depends on your luck." Lin Sun smiled and didn't continue to ask. The two came to the bustling streets and alleys and looked around. Lin Sun also picked some treasures, all of which were rare and eccentric things that were hard to come across on the ancient starry path. Their prices were not very high, but they were not cheap either. After a long time, Lin Sun had spent millions of true dragon coins. Most of the things he bought were related to food, including meat, fruits and vegetables, seasonings and so on. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Zheng would have suspected that Lin Sun was a great emperor of cooking. Lin Sun's way of spending money like water shocked Zheng. Millions of true dragon coins were enough to buy a high-grade profound-grade monarch weapon, but Lin Sun didn't even breathe when he squandered money. Even Zheng was amazed by his extravagant way. He didn't know that the money Lin Sun spent now was from the true Dragon Clan. Lu Jie Mei Jiang Qianchu? Punishment? Pen Bailey Chu? Fat Bao? Wan Xiang? Xianzong? Zhenmu? Paji Jingwing. Along the way, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He had been operating the clairvoyant connection, intending to see if he could find something good. Who would have thought that there were no loopholes for him to pick up? It must be known that the Heaven's Eye was the ultimate technique of the 8th successor of Mount Fangtsuan, Diviner Z. This richest god of fortune of Mount Fangtsuan had relied on the Heaven's Eye to sweep through all the rare treasures in the starry sky and become rich. Not long after, a noisy discussion caught Lin Sun's attention. "Is it really Tai Chu? Pan? June, how can it be fake? The Heaven's Reflection Tower has already released news that they have been entrusted by a mysterious person to auction off this treasure, and the auction will be held until midnight tonight. Let's go take a look." Hearing this, Lin Sun was stunned. Tai Chu? Pan? Badger meat carrying haze-raising Shanxiao Barba? Cunning and skillful in plotting at this moment, Zheng also noticed the commotion, and he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. What a fucking coincidence! On the street in the distance, many figures were gathering in the direction of the Heaven's Invisibility Tower. The scene was extremely shocking. Obviously, they were attracted by this auction. "Senior, do you want to go and have a look?" asked Zheng. Lin Sun thought for a moment and looked at Zheng, saying, "How about you go and have a look for me? If this treasure is real, I'll buy it." And Zheng was stunned and pointed at himself. Me? Lin Sun nodded. Chapter 23:19. And Zheng almost thought that Lin was deliberately making things difficult for him. Even if he sold himself, he wouldn't be able to afford the price of Tai Chu Pan? That? But the next moment, Zheng was full of shame and trembled. Lin took out a storage pouch, which contained more than 30 imperial weapons. Although they were all at the mysterious grade, their value was immeasurable. If these are not enough to buy Tai Chu Pan? Turbulent trade Su Pao Huan e-file shake. As he spoke, Lin Sun handed another one to Zheng. Opening it, Lin Sun found tens of millions of true dragon coins, a small mountain of all kinds of rare treasures, and inestimable divine materials. Zheng gasped. After a long silence, he finally dared to believe that in order to buy Tai Chu Pan, he couldn't help asking, "Why don't you go in person?" Lin Sun said, "It's not convenient." Lin Sun said, "It's not convenient." It was really not convenient. In a place like the auction, there must be a lot of people. If he was targeted by someone, it would cause a lot of trouble. Of course, Lin Sun was not afraid of trouble. The reason why he asked Zheng to go was that Zheng was a pure-blood descendant of the Bayan imperial family. No one dared to provoke him on the Green Rainbow Island. In addition, the treasures he gave Zheng were all from the real Bayan imperial family. Jinwei Dan? Vegetable stealthy trick? Cinder ash neon bake? Locust towering gilded beer? If Zheng handled the stolen goods, he wouldn't have to worry about any problems. Hurry up. When the auction is over, I will find you. Lin Sun patted the shoulder of Zheng, who was still in a daze. If this thing is done, I will let you see what the real Bayan seal looks like. Zheng nodded and took a deep breath. Then I'll go. Until he arrived at the Tianjin Tower, Zheng suddenly remembered what the real Bayan seal was. The meaning of this sentence was too puzzling. It was even ridiculous. After all, the Bayan seal was the inheritance of the Bayan imperial family. Shaking his head, Zheng stopped thinking about it. After showing his identity, he was directly arranged to the highest standard quiet room in the Tianjin Tower. At the same time, Lin Sun wandered alone on the Green Rainbow Island, still spending money like water. Rare treasures that had never been heard of? By ingredients that had never been seen? By these specialties seemed to be interesting. By Lin Sun was treated warmly wherever he went. He even caused quite a stir because of his extravagance. It wasn't long before practically all the merchants on the Emerald Rainbow Island knew that a rich and imposing tycoon had come today, and he'd vividly demonstrated to the world what it meant to squander money like dirt and what it meant to be capricious when rich. The true dragon coin was refined from a type of pure dark gold Taoist crystal. It was also the currency recognized by all living beings in the true dragon world. But for Lin Sun, this kind of currency was just a number without much value. If he didn't spend it now, he wouldn't be able to spend it when he returned to the starry ancient path. Really? Xingwei, why do you call me Ring or Disaster Soul? You traitorous mother twice? Mao Pingwei? You Zhao Wei Wei Pu melon selection now. These treasures were all Lin Sun's trophies. Except for those treasures given to Zheng, Lin Sun still had a lot of them. In short, he was not short of money. It wasn't long before Lin Sun came to a special trading area, where slaves were traded. Inside the densely packed cages, there were many creatures shackled. Most of them came from some strange and weak races. The faces of every creature that had been reduced to a slave were full of numbness, as if they were goods being pointed at and judged. Lin Sun glanced around and saw some imprisoned human slaves, all with disheveled hair and ragged clothes. Almost all of them were in their teens, including men and women. "Sir, are you going to choose slaves?" A man in a silver robe came over with a smile. Lin Sun recognized at a glance that this was a creature of the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan. He asked, "How many humans are there in the whole market?" The man in the silver robe said, "How many do you want, sir?" "All of them." The silver-robed man's spirits were refreshed, and he said excitedly, "My lord, to tell you the truth, the trade of human slaves on the entire Jade Rainbow Isle has always been controlled by our bloodthirsty green bat race, and what you see now is only a small portion." After a pause, he said tentatively, "The only thing I'm worried about is whether you can buy all of them." Lin Sun threw out a storage pouch. "You can take this as a deposit." The man in the silver robe's breathing became heavy. There were 1,000,000 true dragon coins in the storage pouch, which was a huge sum of money. "Sir, please wait a moment. I'll prepare the goods for you." The man in the silver robe quickly took out a communication jade slip and began to get busy. Not long after, a black-robed old man came from afar. The man in the silver robe went forward and talked for a while, then took a treasure pouch from the black-robed old man. "Lord, there are 387 human slaves in these cages. Among them, there are 130 children under the age of 10, and the rest are men and women between the age of 10 and 17. Added with the 17 slaves in these cages, there are 404 slaves in total." The man in the silver robe said quickly, "According to the current market price, these slaves are worth a total of 1,350,000 true dragon coins. Sir, you only need to pay another 350,000 true dragon coins, and these slaves are all yours." Lin Sun asked, "That's too little. Is there any more?" The man in the silver robe was stunned. Too little? The number of humans was small. It was already a big deal to be able to sell more than 400 slaves at once. After thinking for a while, the man in the silver robe looked around vigilantly. Then he gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Sir, we still have a batch of black goods in our hands. If you really need them, we have to change the place to trade." The so-called black goods were goods of dubious origin. Once exposed, it was very likely to cause a lot of trouble. "Okay." Lin Sun nodded and agreed. Immediately, the man in the silver robe led Lin Sun away from the bustling downtown. After several turns, they came to the depths of a remote street. They pushed open the closed gate of a courtyard and walked towards the depths. In the process, Lin Sun noticed that the courtyard was covered with the power of prohibition, which could block the investigation of the outside world. Not long after, in a hall in the depths of the courtyard, a woman in a purple robe sat upright, her triangular eyes glowing with evil light. "Elder, this lady is a big buyer." The man in the silver robe came forward and explained in a low voice. After listening, the woman in the purple robe looked at Lin Sun up and down and said, "My friend, black goods are very troublesome. Maybe it will lead to a fatal disaster. Don't you worry about it?" Lin Sun said indifferently, "Since I'm here, do you think I will worry about this?" The woman in the purple robe took a deep look at Lin Sun. Without saying anything more, she waved her sleeve. With a burst of sounds, dozens of human men and women fell to the ground. Each of them was tied up and their hair was disheveled. These are all human practitioners. The weakest one has the cultivation of Tao Insight Realm, and the strongest one has the foundation of Peerless Saint King Realm. The woman in the purple robe said leisurely, "The value of these slaves is far greater than those little things who don't know how to cultivate." As she said, she got up and came to a human woman. She lifted the latter's chin and said to Lin Sun, "My friend, look, this girl is a peerless Saint King. She is also extremely beautiful. The rarest thing is that she is still a virgin." The human woman's hair was disheveled. Her whole body was wrapped in chains branded with Taoist patterns. Her snow-white skin was full of dense whip marks. When her head was lifted, an extremely beautiful face like a flower and jade was suddenly revealed. But her face was pale and transparent, and her eyes were empty and dull as if she had no soul. When Lin Sun saw this woman, his pupils suddenly shrank and his heart was stirred. Yin Huan. This woman was Yin Huan, the successor of Shinji Taoist sect, the stunning beauty who was like a companion to Ao Jintian, a pure-blood descendant of true dragon. At that time, she and Ao Zhentian went to the ancient desolation realm together and invited Zhao Jingxian to leave with them to the true dragon world. But now, she was reduced to a slave and fell into the hands of the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Lin Sun almost couldn't believe it. And looking at her scarred body and numb and empty look, an unspeakable shock and anger also surged in Lin Sun's heart. Jing Xian left with Yin Huan. Now that Yin Huan was in such a miserable situation, what about Jing Xian? Did something happen to her? The woman in the purple robe didn't notice the change of Lin Sun's mood. Seeing him staring at the human female slave, she couldn't help but laugh. She said, "Looks like you are very satisfied with this batch of illegal goods. However, you have to be clear about the price. The woman in my hands is at least 20 million true dragon coins. After all, this is an end-life Saint King. If it wasn't for the fact that she is illegal, not to mention 20 million true dragon coins, there would be people who would buy her for 50 million. Of course, if you think it's too expensive, you can look at other human slaves. For example, Tao Insight Realm, only 800,000, Reincarnation Developing Realm, 1.2 million, King Realm." As the woman in the purple robe quoted, the man in the silver robe next to her waited expectantly for Lin Sun, the big buyer, to spend money. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly said, "I want all of these. Is there more?" The woman in the purple robe and the man in the silver robe were stunned. "Not enough? It seems that you really don't have more." Lin Sun glanced at them and said, "Then I can only send you on your way." The man in the silver robe's face suddenly changed, and he said, "What do you mean?" As soon as his voice fell, he was killed on the spot by an invisible force. His body directly turned into ashes and disappeared. Whoosh! The woman in the purple robe reacted very quickly and moved out of the hall without hesitation. But in an instant she was grabbed by the neck by Lin Sun, as if he was holding a chicken. Chapter 23:20. As soon as the purple-robed woman's voice fell, her body turned into ashes and drifted between Lin Sun's fingers. At the same time, Lin Sun spread his spiritual awareness. In this courtyard, the 19 bloodthirsty green bats, scattered in different places, all died silently and violently. Then, Lin Sun looked at Yin Huan and flicked his fingers. A stream of warm and vigorous vitality poured into Yin Huan's body. Visible to the naked eye, the scars all over her body recovered at an incredible speed, and her pale and transparent face was full of vitality. Even the chronic disease in her body and the injury of Tao were completely healed. No! After a while, Yin Huan let out a scream of horror and struggled violently, trying to fight desperately. "Miss Yin Huan, it's all right." Lin Sun reached out and pressed her shoulder. His voice, like the sound of Tao, swept away the panic and restlessness in Yin Huan's heart. Her twitching and struggling delicate body quieted down as if she had just woken up from a dream. Her empty and numb eyes recovered little by little, and she was completely sober. Lin Sun? How could it be you? I'm not dreaming, am I?" Looking at Lin Sun's familiar face, Yin Huan's eyes drifted, and she couldn't help wondering if she was dreaming. "It's me. It's all right now." This caused Lin Sun to sigh in his heart. As the disciple of the divine mechanism Taoist sect and the peerless beauty that the seventh prince of the dragon clan, Ao Zhentian, adored, he didn't know what sort of tragic calamity she'd experienced after she entered the true dragon world, but she'd actually been reduced to a slave that was at the mercy of others and trampled on at will. This kind of experience was too cruel. After a while, Yin Huan dared to believe all this was true. She couldn't control her inner emotions any longer. She threw herself into Lin Sun's arms and cried hoarsely. Crystal-clear tears fell down like pearls. Lin Sun only asked after she'd vented the emotions in her heart through crying, "What exactly happened after all of you came to the true dragon world all those years ago?" Yin Huan took a deep breath, sat up straight, wiped the red and swollen corners of her eyes, and said, Brother Lin, I know you are worried about Jing Xian, but you can rest assured that she will be fine. Lin Sun's tightly clenched heart was relieved a lot. Next, Yin Huan told him everything that had happened. Dozens of years ago, when she and Ao Zhentian brought Zhao Jingxian to the true dragon world, nothing unexpected happened. Under the arrangements of the true dragon clan, Zhao Jingxian smoothly obtained the qualifications to participate in the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering. However, an unforeseen event took place during the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering, and everything changed. Yin Huan was a human, thus she was not qualified to participate in the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering. She only learned that the information related to the 10,000 Dragons Immortal Gathering had been sealed off. Apart from the authorities of the true dragon tribe, no one knew what had happened during the gathering. What astonished Yin Huan even more was that no matter if it was Zhao Jingxian or Ao Zhentian, both of them had actually been directly arranged by the clan to enter the primal beginning dragon pool for closed-door cultivation. As for Yin Huan, she was expelled by the true dragon clan. At this point, Yin Huan revealed a frustrated and furious expression. At that time, I had no idea what was going on at all before I was captured by the fourth prince of the true dragon clan, Ao Xianfeng, and brought out of the dragon palace. In the end, Ao Xianfeng said that a human woman like me was not worthy of his younger brother, Ao Zhentian, and asked me to get lost as far as I could. Yin Huan's expression was filled with shame and indignation. She gritted her teeth and said, "He also said that if I dared to appear again, he would definitely crush my bones and scatter my ashes." Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. He was very clear that Ao Zhentian and Yin Huan were truly in love with each other, and their relationship was extremely strong. When he was in the ancient Desolation Realm, Ao Zhentian once said that after returning to the true dragon world, he would report the relationship between him and Yin Huan to the elders of the clan, and he would marry Yin Huan no matter what difficulties he encountered. But Yin Huan was expelled by the true dragon clan. Obviously, the true dragon clan did not intend to agree to this marriage at all. Later, Yin Huan's eyes were filled with pain. Later, she was like a pitiful person abandoned by the world, and she tried every means to find Ao Zhentian again. But in the end, it was in vain. Because she was a human, no matter where she went, she would be bullied and suppressed by the beings of various clans. If it wasn't for her cultivation at the ultimate king realm, she would have probably suffered countless misfortunes. Not long ago, she was targeted by a quasi-emperor from the Baxiao imperial clan, one of the 9 great imperial clans, and she was suppressed miserably. After that, she was sold as a commodity to the mysterious Yin Snake clan, and then she was robbed by the bloodthirsty Green Bat clan. As soon as she finished speaking, Yin Huan couldn't help but burst into tears. Her days of drifting through the true dragon dimension during these past few years were simply like a nightmare, and it was practically a destructive blow to her. Lin Sun couldn't restrain the flames of rage in his heart when he heard all this. A dignified Saint King was extremely dazzling and noble in the ancient Desolation Realm, and even on the Starry Sky Ancient Path, she could be said to be an influential figure in a world. But in the true dragon world, Yin Huan had been injured miserably many times, and she was wantonly bullied and persecuted. All of this, the true dragon clan absolutely couldn't shirk the responsibility. Similarly, this was related to her identity as a human. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have asked Jing Xian to come here. Although Zhao Jingxian possessed the bloodline of the true dragon, and her mother was the younger sister of the current patriarch of the true dragon clan, the blood of the human clan still flowed in her body. How would she be treated in the true dragon clan now? "Miss Yin Huan, do you know the way to the dragon palace?" Lin Sun asked. Yin Huan shook her head. "Brother Lin, the dragon palace is the most mysterious place. Without the invitation of the true dragon clan, even those in the emperor realm can't enter." Lin Sun was slightly disappointed. He took a deep breath, forcefully restrained his worry for Zhao Jingxian, and said, This isn't a place to stay for long. I'll take you away first. Yin Huan nodded. Lin soon took away all the human experts who were imprisoned like Yin Huan, and then left with Yin Huan. Brother Lin, why did you come to the true dragon world? On the way, Yin Huan couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun said, I'm worried about Jing Xian. With a complicated look in her eyes, Yin Huan sighed faintly. Sister Jing Xian is so lucky to have you as her cultivation companion. Immediately, her face changed slightly and she said, Brother Lin, the true dragon clan most rejects marriage with outsiders. If you really have a chance to go to the Dragon Palace this time, you should be prepared. She recalled her humiliating experience of being expelled. Lin soon narrowed his eyes and said, I understand. After chatting for a while, Lin soon saw that Yin Huan was sleepy and listless, so he invited her to enter the Endless Tower for meditation. Then he returned to the place where he had agreed with Zheng. The sky was already gray and the night spread like a tide. Lanterns were lit up everywhere on Jade Rainbow Isle, causing it to be dazzling and bright as day, and the gorgeous shadows of the lanterns caused the entire isle to seem dreamlike. Lin Sun stood there alone, holding a wine gourd and drinking by himself. His lonely figure was incompatible with the bustling atmosphere nearby. At night, the Green Rainbow Island was even more lively than during the day. All kinds of creatures shuttled through the dense cobweb-like streets, shouting and hawking incessantly. It had been nearly half a month since Lin Sun arrived in the true dragon world, but what he had seen and heard in this half a month made Lin Sun feel repulsed and uncomfortable, as if his chest was blocked by stones. Human clan was humble and reduced to slaves, slaughtered and trampled at will. What he had seen along the way seemed to prove how miserable the situation of the human clan was. If that was all, it would be fine. But now, knowing the great changes in the All Dragons Immortals meeting and Yin Huan's humiliating experience, Lin Sun couldn't help but suspect that this trip to the true dragon clan would probably not go smoothly. Lin Sun drank silently, and his black eyes gradually became firm. No matter how bumpy the road ahead was, he would take Jing Xian away this time. Late at night, the unprecedentedly grand auction in the Tianjin Tower finally came to an end. As the finale, Tai Chu, Pan, Bao, Zhong 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 E official edict official Yi Mu Mu Chang? A certain flounder Huan Chi Wei Wei Yen Qing Song Yao jealous? Mu? Nipple? Brilliant vinegar burial? Miaowei Mi Mocun long point. After settling this matter, Zheng slumped into his chair as if he had been stripped of all energy, and his heart was filled with unprecedented excitement and agitation. For the first time in his life, he tasted what it meant to be squandered. The monarch weapons were thrown out one after another as if they were worthless, causing quite a stir among the crowd. It was unknown how many people were envious, jealous, and crazy. There was no need to mention how wonderful that feeling was. At this moment, Zheng still wanted more. In fact, it was also on this night that he, Zheng, became completely famous. A quasi-emperor had used dozens of emperor weapons and mountains of treasures and divine materials to obtain the title of Tai Chu, Pan. As for those experts from the Taowu imperial clan like Zheng, they were all stunned. They did not dare to believe that Zheng had actually become this, rich and overbearing. There were also some people with bad intentions who had planned to snatch the Tai Chu treasure after the auction ended. Pan? Raise a flock? Frame? However, when they learned that the final winner was a pure-blooded descendant of the Taowu imperial clan, their faces turned green with anger, and they had to give up the idea of robbing. This was the Green Rainbow Island, the territory of the Taowu imperial clan. If Lin participated as an expert from the Cloud Spirit clan, perhaps he could also obtain the Tai Chu treasure in the end? Pan? Kill the Chu clan to exchange for the Mei clan? Parrots, sandwiches, QE spitting beach field. This was also the reason why he chose to ask Zheng for help. Although Lin Sun was standing in the crowd, his divine awareness had been covering the vicinity of the Tianjin Tower, so he had already seen everything. He could not help but feel relieved. Could he obtain the Tai Chu treasure this time? Pan? Na bandit Meng Xian was stunned. Badger wood? Disease? After all, this kind of treasure was one of the key divine materials to condense the chaos source tree. But soon, Lin Sun frowned. Chapter 23-21. Uncles, what are you doing? And Zheng had a dumbfounded look on his face. As soon as he came out, he was stopped by two elders of the clan, who forcibly took him back to reflecting Rainbow Mountain. You really don't know? His name was Tianshui, one of the 4 martial emperors guarding the Rainbow Reflection Mountain. He frowned with a dignified expression. What happened to me? And Zheng found it increasingly strange. You bought Tai Chu Chu? Pan? Mei Mao Shi Hui Yu Mu Jia Fan Mo Jun Ting Huan Chue Concrete? Dazzling? Why was the situation so dangerous that they were completely defeated? Evil Kai Shijing? Bright and shaky orange Song Yuanjing hesitated. Is there a problem with these treasures? This is a big problem. And Tianshui said, we just received the news this morning. Is it true? Lu Zanyu stir-fried swan and I swan huang jiao jiao? And Zheng was stunned for a moment before he said, could it be? He guessed a possibility, and his expression changed slightly. You're not that stupid after all. If I'm not mistaken, the treasures you squandered at the Heavenly Mirror Tower today should all be real, right? Wei Wei Danan Tianshui said, of course. Really? Wei Wei tame and graceful? What do you mean by that? Suppressing the Emperor and the polymath? In the consort's nunnery? The tail fairy of the pontoon boat Washan Tianlin also looked at Zheng. And Zheng's expression flickered, and just as he was about to say something, a figure appeared out of thin air and said indifferently, I asked him to help. It was Lin Sun. In an instant, Tianshui and Tianlin narrowed their eyes and stared at Lin Sun. Soon, both of them were surprised. Even with their cultivation, they were unable to identify the person in front of them. May I ask who you are? And Tianshui cupped his fist. His eyes were filled with vigilance. He was extremely suspicious. Is it because the male capital is Zheng? Retribution is wanton and unrestrained, Lin Daoyuan, Lin Sun said casually. In the ancient path of the starry sky, this was a name that could shake any orthodoxy. However, in the true dragon world, this name was extremely unfamiliar. At the very least, this was the first time Tianshui and the others had heard of it. It would appear that fellow Taoist is not from the Cloud Spirit clan. And Tianshui pondered deeply for a moment before he said, of course, all of this isn't important. I'm just curious, why would fellow Taoist use a junior of my clan? With that, he pointed at Zheng. You think too much. If it hadn't caused some unnecessary trouble, I wouldn't have asked Zheng to do it for me. After a short pause, he continued, can I have a private chat with young friend Zheng? And Tianshui and Tianlin looked at each other. They couldn't figure out what Lin Sun was thinking, but they nodded in the end. Lin Sun took Zheng, who was confused and in a trance, to the distance. He stretched out his hand and made a prohibition seal to cover this area. Then he said, now you have known my identity. What do you think? And Zheng smiled bitterly and said, I'm just a junior. I can't afford to meddle in the affairs of you big shots. As he spoke, he handed a sealed golden jade bottle to Lin Sun. Senior, is this sealed Tai Chu E? Pan. Lin Sun took it in his hand and used his spiritual awareness to sense it. Then he nodded and said, yes, this is the treasure. And Zheng took a deep breath and cupped his hands. Senior, this matter has been settled. Please forgive me and let me go. A true immortal that could almost kill a true immortal? A true immortal from the earth? A false immortal from the iliac curtain? Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, I promise to show you the real power of the seal of Bayan. I can't break my promise. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Zheng. A brand of great Tao drilled into Zheng's glabella. Boom! And Zheng felt a shock in his sea of consciousness. A seal of Bayan emerged, exuding a terrifying power. In a trance, he seemed to see that the seal of Tao turned into the figure of the ancestor, stepping on the starry sky and suppressing the world. That was a kind of power Zheng had never seen before. He had never thought that the inheritance of the seal of Bai, and that he had been practicing since he was a child, would be so powerful. It could even be described as incredible. A moment later, Zheng was sweating profusely and his eyes were in a trance. He suddenly remembered what Lin Sun had said. It's not that you made a mistake in your cultivation, but the inheritance you practice is wrong. Was it true? If so, did it mean that there had always been a flaw in his cultivation? And Zheng's mood was agitated, and his state of mind showed signs of wavering. Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder and said, "It's not too late to make up for it. You can fix it if you meditate on it carefully in the future." And Zheng's state of mind calmed down immediately. With a complicated look in his eyes, he bowed and said, "Senior, thank you for your guidance." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked off into the distance with an absent-minded and distracted expression. "What did you do to Zheng?" And Tianshui's face darkened. He noticed that there was something wrong with Zheng's state. Lin Sun smiled and said nothing more. His figure disappeared out of thin air. And Tianlin checked Zheng's body from head to toe. Then he said softly, "I didn't do anything to you. It's just that your state of mind is a little unstable." And Tianshui nodded and said, "Let's go back to Yinghong Mountain first. If that Shui is like you and cultivates the flawed Bayan seal, she's destined to be unable to become an emperor." Lin Sun watched Zheng's group disappear from afar. He also turned and left, disappearing into the bustling night sky. 7 days later, on Yinghong Mountain, Shui, who was regarded as the pride of the younger generation of the Bayan Emperor clan and possessed the cultivation of a consummate quasi-emperor Jufeng, broke out of seclusion. And Zheng went to look for her as soon as he heard the news. "You said that a true emperor who almost wiped out the Bayan Emperor? Bayan Emperor? Tsongem? Bayan? Gamma? Bai? Danjun?" And Shui couldn't help but be astounded when she heard Zheng's reason for coming here. She was dressed in martial attire, and her soft black hair was just past her ears. Her features were exquisite and pretty, and her thin and slender figure was straight like a spear. Her entire body emitted an overbearing, fierce, and capable aura. "That's right." Zheng nodded. And Shui sneered, "Such a powerful figure needs the help of a quasi-emperor Jufeng. Who do you think will believe it?" "It's true." Zheng tried his best to convince Shui to believe him. "I always feel that this matter is a little strange." And Shui frowned. "It's better not to help. If Lin Daoyuan goes to the true dragon clan with evil intentions, won't I be an accomplice?" And Zheng was stunned and said, "No, what kind of existence is the true dragon clan? Who in the world dares to harm them? Don't forget, you said that Lin Daoyuan almost destroyed the true dragon clan. By an Emperor Jufeng? Song Kun killed by an Emperor Jufeng." And Shui's eyes flashed. "Not only me, but also you can't interfere in this matter. Cut off the connection with Lin Daoyuan as soon as possible." "Sister, I don't think this senior is a treacherous person." And Zheng hesitated for a moment, and then told the whole story about the guidance he received from Lin Sun without concealing anything. When Shui heard this, she was in disbelief. "Is this true?" Zheng looked solemn. "I dare not lie about the inheritance of the clan. Can I have a look?" And Shui asked. This matter had a great impact on her. For a moment she was surprised and felt ridiculous, and her mood fluctuated. And Zheng smiled bitterly and pointed to his head. "How can I see it in my sea of consciousness? I can only experience it myself." He took a deep breath and said seriously, "Sister, I have been comprehending it these days, and I have comprehended some mysteries. Have a look." As he said, his body glowed, and a Swanee seal suddenly appeared in front of him, emitting amazing fluctuations of the Great Way. The swanny seal on the seal seemed to come to life at any time, which made people tremble. With just a glance, Anshue understood the mystery of this swanny seal. She couldn't help but change her expression. How much have you comprehended? Less than 1 in 10,000, Anjing replied. Anshue immediately said, Take me to see him. Anjing scratched his head and said, But I don't know where that senior is now. Go and find him. Anshue glared at him and said angrily, Forget it, I'll go with you. She couldn't calm down. She was Quasi-Emperor Jufeng, and she was only one step away from breaking through to the Emperor realm. But all these years, she couldn't comprehend or grasp the opportunity to become a great emperor, so her cultivation had been stagnant. But now, after hearing Anjing's words, Anshue vaguely had a thought in her mind. Perhaps the reason why she couldn't break through was because of the inheritance she cultivated. Anshue, after some time, the big shot of the true dragon tribe will come personally to give you pointers on how to break through. Why are you going out now? When Anshue and Anjing were about to leave, they saw that Tianshui had appeared not far away and was looking at them with a frown. I am going to the market with Anjing, Anshue said. I have been in closed-door cultivation recently, and I feel quite depressed. Just take it as a walk to relax. And Tianshui's expression softened slightly as he said, Don't feel too pressured. Over the years, not only our by an imperial clan, but even those clans that are ranked among the 9 great imperial clans like us, have not been able to prove their Tao and become martial emperors. But don't worry, when the big shot of the true dragon tribe comes, he will definitely be able to solve this problem for you. Anshue nodded and cupped her hands. Thank you for your advice, uncle. We will go now. Go. And Tianshui waved his hand and watched Anshue and Anjing leave together. A complicated expression appeared in his eyes. These young people didn't know that no matter which one of the descendants of the 9 great emperor clans had the opportunity to become a great emperor, without the guidance of the true dragon tribe, no matter how talented they were destined to never touch the threshold of the great emperor realm. This was a core secret. Among the 9 great emperor clans, only great emperors knew about it. As for the true dragon bloodline, it was precisely because of this special teaching method that they were able to firmly control the 9 great imperial clans. And Shui, in order to help you become a great emperor, our tribe paid a huge price in exchange for this opportunity from the true dragon tribe. I only hope that nothing bad happens when you pass the tribulation and become a great emperor, and Tianshui muttered in his heart. P.S. Today's update was brought forward. Goldfish will participate in the Red Carpet live broadcast of the Writer's Year at 5:30 p.m. If you want to see Goldfish in person, you can follow Goldfish's WeChat official account. Chapter 23-22. On the Green Rainbow Island. On a cliff overlooking the sea, Lin Sun woke up from meditation. Lin Sun woke up from meditation. In his Sea of Consciousness, Taishian Sword Sutra, Sky Sanctioning Sword Sutra, Fuyao Sword Sutra, No Return Gone, and Tao Cutting Sword in an instant had a faint echo and fit with each other. However, it was still too difficult for him to integrate them. The 5 Supreme Sword Manuals were like 5 Supreme Sword Emperors. Wanting to completely master their grand Tao paths and turn them into his own sword Tao was too difficult. Lin Sun was not in a hurry. The Emperor's Tao was not something that could be achieved overnight. The only thing that surprised Lin Sun was that according to his current cultivation speed, it would not take long for him to reach the perfection of the 2nd level of the Emperor realm. When he tried to break through the 3rd level of the Emperor realm, he would encounter the Emperor's heart block, which was the first major tribulation on the Emperor realm. Lin Sun had been thinking about it recently. This tribulation was related to one's state of mind, but he had no idea what kind of tribulation he would encounter. He asked Shi and Yellow for advice and got the same answer. Every Emperor realm would encounter different Emperor's heart blocks, so there was nothing to learn from them. While he was thinking, Lin Sun felt something and looked into the distance. Not long after, Zheng and Shue's figures appeared and flew toward them. A faint smile appeared on Lin Sun's lip. When he imparted the secret of the sutra seal to Zheng, he knew that Shue, who had been preparing for the Emperor realm all these years, would not sit still after knowing this. This meant that instead of asking Shue for help, it was better to let Shue come to him obediently. "You're here." Lin Sun stood up and did not put on the posture of an Emperor realm figure. Strictly speaking, he was even younger than Zheng and Shue. "Senior, this is my elder sister." Zheng stepped forward and introduced her respectfully. "Greetings, Senior." Shue cupped her hands and looked at Lin Sun, saying, "I think Senior should have guessed why I'm here. I dare not hide it. Although I can't help you enter the Dragon Palace, I can help you get in touch with the big shots of the true dragon tribe." "That's good." Lin Sun nodded. There was no doubt that Shue was an extremely intelligent and straightforward woman, but she had her own standpoint. With a flick of his finger, the profound brand of the Taowu seal flashed into the space between Shue's brows. The latter's body stiffened, and then she sat down cross-legged without the slightest hesitation to comprehend it in meditation. After a long time, Shue opened her eyes from meditation. When she looked at Lin Sun again, her clear eyes were filled with awe and disbelief. She finally realized that what Zheng had said was actually true. The inheritance of the Swan Ni imperial clan's Swan Ni imperial clan had been training in all these years was actually not complete. "Thank you for your guidance, Senior." Shue bowed, and her tone became sincere. "An elder of the true dragon clan will arrive at the Emerald Rainbow Isle in around half a month from now. At that time, I'll introduce Senior to him." Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you. Half a month?" He could wait. "Senior, I have a presumptuous request. How did you master the inheritance of the Swan Ni seal of our clan?" Shue hesitated for a moment, and then braced herself to ask. Zheng was startled and also looked at her. This was also the biggest doubt in his heart, but he didn't have the courage to ask before. Lin Sun said casually, "It's a long story. In short, it can't be stolen from your Swan Ni imperial clan." Shue and Zheng looked at each other. Of course, it couldn't be stolen. After all, the inheritance of the Swan Ni imperial clan was flawed, but the inheritance of the Swan Ni seal of Lin Daoyuan was complete. Shue took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Senior, can you leave the complete inheritance behind? I believe that our Swan Ni imperial clan will be grateful to you and regard you as the supreme benefactor of our clan. Moreover, no matter what request you have, as long as it's within our power, we will definitely agree." Lin Sun said with a faint smile, "This is not something that a junior like you can decide. If there's a chance in the future, I don't mind doing it, but not now." Shue couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. But she also knew that this was not something a junior like her could meddle in. Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "Don't tell anyone about this. If I can return from the true dragon clan, maybe I will talk to the big shots of your Swan Ni imperial clan about this." He didn't want to cause trouble, and he didn't want trouble to come to him. If the old monsters of the Swan Ni imperial clan knew about this, they would definitely use all means to keep him here. Although Shue and Zheng felt strange, they still agreed. After a while, they left in a hurry. Lin Sun stayed where he was. He had finally come to a conclusion about one thing. Master Lu's inheritance of the 9 transformations of Calamity Dragon was not as simple as he thought. "I'm afraid this situation is not only in the Swan Ni Imperial Clan, but also in the Ice Dragon Imperial Clan. Diarrhea and Yue? Che Chong Lian? Guan Bao Mu Wei Lu Xiao? Chiu Mu Bo Mi and Tan Zhuang Chun?" Lin Sun pondered. An incomplete inheritance is unable to allow the younger generation of the emperor clans to have the chance to become martial emperors. However, since ancient times, the 9 great emperor clans have never lacked martial emperors. Does this mean that the inheritance of the 9 transformations of Calamity Dragon has always been regarded by the true dragon bloodline as a means to suppress the 9 emperor clans? Only with the help of the true dragon bloodline, the descendants of the 9 emperor clans who have the potential to become emperors will have the chance to become emperors? If that's the case, it'll be interesting. Thinking of this, Lin Sun smiled. No matter what, these things at least had no impact on him now. Soon, Lin Sun walked toward the bustling market with his hands behind his back. I wonder when I can find the dark parasol divine woods divine soul root and clear turbid star soul sand. A long time ago, Lin Sun had been collecting all kinds of divine woods and materials that could produce the chaos origin tree sapling. However, over the years, he had traveled to countless places, yet he had only managed to collect Fusang, Jianmu, Kunwu, and Yixiang of the 4 great divine trees. 5 colored miraculous soil, and a piece of chaotic life soil. He'd only obtained primordium a few days ago on Emerald Rainbow Island. Pan? Bo? Presently, he only had the dark parasol divine woods soul root and clear turbid star soul sand before he could produce the chaos origin tree sapling. On the path to the Emperor realm, anyone who could control the chaos origin tree would possess the ability to comprehend and control the quintessence laws of chaos. However, it was extremely difficult to produce a chaos origin tree. At the very least, according to Lin Sun's knowledge, there were only 2 or 3 people that had truly produced a chaos origin tree throughout the countless years of the starry sky. The reason was that the divine woods and materials were too rare. Every single one of them could be said to be precious treasures of legend, and they could only be chanced upon by luck. For example, Lin Sun had obtained the Fusang divine tree's soul root in the ancient Desolation region. But up until now, he was already a peak emperor realm, yet he was still unable to accomplish this. Unfortunately, Lin Sun's luck seemed to have been used up. In the following days, he'd been constantly walking on Emerald Rainbow Island, yet he didn't see any more divine materials that he required. Bang! On this day, a divine rainbow passageway suddenly appeared in the sky extremely far away from Emerald Rainbow Island, and then a dragon-whiskered turtle that was an entire 30 kilometers in length flashed out from the depths of the passageway while carrying a dazzling golden palace on its back. At practically the exact same moment, the 4 Emperor Realm experts of the Taowu Imperial clan that resided on the island moved out in unison, and they personally headed over to greet the dragon-whiskered turtle. This scene caused an uproar on Emerald Rainbow Island at the first possible moment, because it was the arrival of a great figure from the true dragon bloodline, and the true dragon bloodline was the overlord of this world and possessed supreme might. Not to mention a great figure from the true dragon bloodline, even an attendant of the true dragon bloodline that did odd jobs was in existence that no one dared to offend in this world where a myriad of races existed side by side. He's finally here. On the precipice, Lin Sun opened his eyes from his meditation, and his divine sense swept through the sky and instantly sensed the aura of that great figure from the true dragon clan. A man in a purple robe, with brown eyes and an imposing figure, a person with a cultivation of level 6 Emperor realm. This time, it wasn't just this person who came. Just the retainers that came with him numbered more than 1,000, and all of them had very powerful auras. However, to Lin Sun, apart from this purple-robed man, no one else caught his eye. On that day, news spread that the purple-robed man was an elder of the true dragon bloodline, and his name was Ao Xinglin. His title was Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas. At the same time, Zheng hurried over and invited Lin Sun to Rainbow Reflection Mountain as a guest. In the evening, in a magnificent palace on Rainbow Reflection Mountain, Tianshui, Tianlin, and the other 2 old monsters from the Taowu Imperial clan personally entertained Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas. During the banquet, toasts were exchanged, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas sat alone at the head of the table. His bearing was dignified, and he vaguely resembled a high and mighty king that was receiving the flattery of his subjects. and Tian Shui and the others did not show any hint of displeasure. All of them were very enthusiastic, and revealed a faint sense of humility. Their attitudes were very low, and Tian Shui and the others didn't dare to slight any clansman from the true dragon bloodline, let alone someone as important as Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas. After 3 rounds of wine, Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas finally looked towards Shui, who was sitting not far away. He said calmly, "This is the most dazzling genius of the younger generation in your clan?" And Tian Shui hurriedly said, "Yes," and Shui quickly bowed to Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas. And Shui stood up and bowed respectfully, "Greetings, Lord." Dragon Emperor Shroud of the Seas acknowledged and looked at Shui. He casually tossed out a golden edict with obscure Dao light, and it landed on the table in front of Shui. "Use your natal blood essence to sign on this edict." His tone was indifferent, as though he was giving alms. At this moment, Shui already knew that if she did this, her fate would be firmly controlled by the true dragon bloodline. If she dared to disobey, this edict would give her the most fatal blow. Chapter 23:23. To put it simply, this golden edict might be able to be exchanged for a path to Emperor, but once it was signed, it would be no different from selling one's body. If not for Lin Sun's guidance, Shui might not have been able to refuse to sign such a contract in order to become Emperor. But now, she did not want to sign it. "Shui, what are you waiting for? A great opportunity to become Emperor is right in front of you. Hurry up and sign it." Seeing that Shui did not move for a long time, Tian Shui could not help but feel anxious and urged her. "Can I consider it?" Shui's expression was uncertain as she spoke softly. "Ridiculous!" Tianlin frowned and said in a low voice, "Shui, do you know how difficult it is to obtain such a precious opportunity?" Shui took a deep breath and said, "This matter concerns my future cultivation. Uncles, please allow me to consider it." "Humph!" Dragon Emperor Fu Hai, who was sitting at the head, snorted coldly and showed a hint of displeasure. "Little girl, I don't have time to wait for you. If you do not sign it now, I guarantee that you will never have the chance to step onto the path to Emperor again." Suddenly, Tian Shui and the other important figures of the Taowu imperial clan panicked. They all spoke up, either to admonish or to urge Shui. However, Shui did not move at all. This caught Tian Shui and the others off guard. They could not help but be flustered and exasperated. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's face started to turn gloomy. To be rejected by such a junior was a challenge to his dignity. He stood up and said indifferently, "Forget it. Just pretend that I have never been here. In the future, your Taowu tribe can forget about inviting me here again." He walked towards the exit of the palace. "My lord, please calm down." Tian Shui and the others hurriedly stood up, apologizing and urging him to stay. However, Dragon Emperor Fu Hai ignored them and left directly. "You little girl, you are simply making trouble." Tian Shui's face turned ashen as he watched Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's figure disappear. He could not wait to punish Shui severely. "Shui, do you know how much our Taowu imperial clan has paid to invite Dragon Emperor Fu Hai? Now, all these sacrifices have been ruined." Tianlin was so angry that his beard and hair stood on end. "And because of you, we even angered the Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover, causing our entire tribe to be implicated. You are simply too selfish." As they spoke, they rushed out together and chased after Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover in an attempt to make up for their previous mistake. Shui's pretty face turned pale after being reprimanded. She clenched her fists and stood there alone. Her heart was incomparably sullen and furious. In order to become an emperor, he had to place his fate in the hands of the true dragon bloodline? It was better not to give up such an opportunity. Even without his guidance, I can still achieve the breakthrough. Shui thought to herself. On the Rainbow Echo Mountain, Jing led Lin Sun on the mountain road and transmitted his voice. "Senior, the Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover is a big shot. I'll go and report to him later." Sister Enchue will also help to put in a good word for you. She will definitely fight for a chance to meet you." As he was speaking, Lin Sun suddenly raised his head and looked at the top of Rainbow Reflecting Mountain. A huge dragon-whiskered turtle slowly rose into the air. On its back, there was a magnificent palace. It seemed to be planning to leave. At the same time, Lin Sun saw Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover, dressed in a purple robe and wearing a gloomy expression. He stepped into the air and walked towards the dragon-whiskered turtle. As for Tianxue, Tianlin and the other two old monsters, they looked terrified and pleading as they chased after Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover, trying to make him stay. This made Lin Sun instantly realize that something had gone wrong. And Zheng also saw this scene and couldn't help but be stunned. A bad premonition surged in his heart. When he turned his head to look at Lin Sun beside him, he realized that Lin Sun had already disappeared. "Sir, please give face to our tribe and allow us to make up for this mistake." At the top of Rainbow Reflecting Mountain, Tianxue and the rest begged bitterly. If they let Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover leave in anger, the consequences would be extremely severe. "Don't worry, I won't go so far as to argue with a little girl. However, I'm destined not to come and ask for trouble again in the future," Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover said expressionlessly. Unless what?" And Tianxue's eyes were filled with hope as though he was grasping at straws. Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover said calmly, "That little girl's talent is not bad. I want her to follow me and be a servant." Servant? That was completely a servant role. Moreover, she had to serve Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover and satisfy his desire for women. And Tianxue and the rest felt their hearts turn cold. And Shui was the most dazzling genius of the younger generation of the Taowu imperial tribe. She was a true Ju Taowu quasi-emperor and the hope of the entire tribe. However, Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover proposed to take her as a servant. This was no longer as simple as a punishment. This was more of a humiliation to Enchue and a warning to the Taowu imperial tribe. "What, you're not willing? Then this matter ends here." Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's eyes were cold as he stepped into the air and left. He was a rank 6 martial emperor of the true dragon bloodline. Now that he had taken the initiative to come to the Taowu imperial tribe, he was humiliated by a little girl. He was extremely angry. He was doing this to protect his own dignity. However, before he could enter the palace on the back of the dragon-whiskered black turtle, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded. "Fellow Taoist, please wait." Just as the voice sounded, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air and blocked Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's path. Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover frowned when he was suddenly blocked. His face darkened and he said expressionlessly, "Tianxue, who is this?" And Tianxue and the rest were also extremely shocked. Why did Lin Daoyuan appear? Before they could speak, Lin Sun said indifferently, "Who I am is not important. What's important is that I have something to discuss with you." Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's eyes were cold. "Who do you think you are? What makes you think you're qualified to chat with me? If you don't want to die, scram." His voice was cold. This was the first time he had met such a reckless person. Among the tens of thousands of tribes in this world, who dared to speak to him like this? However, this person before him not only blocked his path, but also spoke in a tone that said he was overestimating himself. He was simply tired of living. And Tianxue was just about to speak about what had happened to the true Dragon Imperial tribe when Tianlin, who was beside him, secretly stopped him. And Tianlin reminded him telepathically, "We cannot interfere in this matter." At the same time, Lin Sun suddenly laughed. His eyes were deep as he said, "Your performance has made my opinion of the true dragon bloodline even worse. You're courting death." Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover slapped out. Boom! The heavens and earth were in chaos and the clouds exploded. Surging laws of the Great Path interweaved and condensed in that terrifying palm power, releasing a world-destroying aura. A lawless realm being could easily kill an ordinary emperor realm being with just a casual strike. Its power was unparalleled. As an innate spirit race emperor of the true dragon tribe, he had an overwhelming advantage over those in the same realm. His terrifying foundation. This was the terror of the true dragon bloodline. At this moment, Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's palm was filled with anger. One could imagine how terrifying its power was. At the very least, when they saw this palm, Tianshui and the other old monsters felt a suffocating sense of despair. Lin Sun's expression did not change as he similarly reached out with his palm. It was a simple move, but there seemed to be formless power that crushed the palm power easily. Then, he clenched his 5 fingers together and grabbed. Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's wrist was instantly grabbed. He almost did not dare to believe his eyes. He activated all the power in his body to fight back. However, Lin Sun's palm was like a bottomless abyss, engulfing and annihilating all the power that he released. Lin Sun grabbed his wrist tightly and did not move at all. Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's expression changed. He finally realized that something was wrong. At this moment, Lin Sun said calmly, "If you move again, don't blame me for being ruthless." Boom! As he spoke, a tsunami-like power erupted from his palm. It broke through Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's defense power like a flood, surging into his limbs and bones. In an instant, all the power in Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's body was restrained. Lin Sun grabbed his wrist, which prevented him from falling from the void. He was shocked and furious. He opened his mouth to shout, but he could not even make a sound. His face turned green from anger. This, and Tianshui and the others were stunned. Everything happened too quickly. In the blink of an eye, Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover was restrained. They did not even have time to react. Until now, when they saw Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover being held by Lin Sun like a powerless sheep, they were all shocked and shocked. This was an important person of the true dragon bloodline, a dragon emperor. Who in the world dared to disrespect him? Who dared to offend him? But now, such a thing was happening right before their eyes. Bang! Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover was knocked unconscious by Lin Sun and kept. Then, as if nothing had happened, he looked towards Tianshui and the others. These old monsters from the Taowu imperial race all looked wary and wary. They saw Lin Sun as a scourge. In the end, Lin Sun still shook his head. He turned and walked towards the dragon-whiskered turtle in the distance. This was Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover's mount. Roar! The dragon-whiskered turtle roared, "How dare you be so rude to my master? No matter who you are, what status and cultivation you have, no one in this world can save you." Bang! Lin Sun punched through the air. The dragon-whiskered turtle's head was almost smashed. It was in so much pain that it let out a heart-wrenching scream. "If you don't listen to me, I'll stew you," Lin Sun said as he arrived at the palace that the dragon-whiskered turtle was carrying. There were thousands of retainers around the magnificent palace. There were men and women. When Lin Sun arrived, they still didn't understand what had happened. Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to say anything. He waved his sleeve, and a sky full of Taoist light surged out. He suppressed and knocked these retainers out one by one. After that, he walked directly into the hall, and he didn't even look back as he spoke. "Old turtle, leave Jade Rainbow Isle first. If you dare to play any tricks, then I guarantee that both you and your lord will die a horrible death. If you don't believe me, then you can feel free to give it a try." The dragon-whiskered turtle hesitated for a moment and finally gave in. It let out a sorrowful and angry roar. Its huge body rose into the sky and moved towards the distance of the green Rainbow Island. P.S. From today until Goldfish returns home, try to update twice every day at noon. Chapter 23-24. Watching the dragon-whiskered tortoise carrying the palace and Lin Sun away, Tianshui and the other old monsters came to their senses. Lin Daoyuan kidnapped Dragon Emperor Fu Hai. What is he trying to do? Someone was shocked. He almost slaughtered the Zhen Ho imperial clan, and now he's on bad terms with a big shot of the Zhen Ho clan. He's playing with fire. Someone was bewildered. This happened on the Green Rainbow Island of our Taowu clan. If the Zhen Ho clan knows about it, we'll be implicated too. Someone looked worried. That senior left just like that, and Zheng was also in a trance when he saw this scene. Only he knew that Lin Sun was going to the Dragon Palace. But he didn't expect that Lin Sun would use such a violent method. And Shui, do you know what you've done? And Tian Shui and Tianlin and the other old monsters returned to the hall. When they saw An Shui, they were all furious. In their opinion, what happened today was completely caused by An Shui. An Shui suddenly asked, "Uncle, did you also sign the Golden Decree when you became a martial monarch?" And Tian Shui and the others looked at each other and snorted. Obviously, they all agreed. Handing your fate to others in exchange for a chance to become an emperor. No wonder you're so afraid of the Zhen Ho clan. And Shui sighed softly. And Shui, you don't know how to repent. How dare you mock us? And Tian Shui and the others looked terrible. They thought An Shui was mocking them. I'm not mocking you. I'm just stating the facts. If your fate is controlled by others, so what if you become an emperor? You still have to be submissive to the Zhen Ho clan. And Shui took a deep breath and said, "But I'm different. I don't have to sign the decree to become an emperor." And Tian Shui laughed in anger. "Ignorant! It is not only our Mowgli clan. Regardless of who among the 9 great imperial clans wishes to become martial emperors, they will need the help of the true dragon lineage. Only by signing the origin talisman will the true dragon lineage lend a hand. This situation has existed since Mingluo Dragon Emperor 100,000 years ago. No one has been able to change it. No one can break this rule. Even you can't." As he finished speaking, and Tian Shui's voice carried resentment. If they weren't forced, how could they have been willing to hand their fates over to another? After a moment of silence, An Shui asked, "What exactly is the help of the true dragon?" And Tian Shui said coldly, "It's a forbidden inheritance that belongs to the true dragon bloodline. It's called the 9 transformations of the Calamity Dragon, and it's targeted at the supreme inheritance of the 9 great imperial clans. This forbidden inheritance has always been controlled by the clan leader of the true dragon bloodline. It's also because of this inheritance that the true dragon bloodline is able to control and command the 9 great imperial clans until now. Do you understand now?" And Shui was stunned. She immediately realized that Senior Lin Daoyuan might be the one who had inherited the 9 transformations of the Calamity Dragon. However, how could such a taboo inheritance be controlled by someone other than the clan leader of the true dragon tribe? Now, do you know how much trouble you've caused? Now, not only did you lose the chance to become a martial emperor, even our Swanee clan has offended the true dragon clan. At this point, and Tian Shui was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. If your father and the elders of the clan find out about this, you will definitely be in serious trouble. The other old monsters' faces were also frosty, and they were full of depression. "Uncles, look at this." Suddenly, and Shui took a deep breath and formed a Swanee seal. The Swanee seal gave off dazzling Taoist light, and the shadow of a Swanee seal seemed to appear, trampling through the starry sky and stirring up the heavens. At first, An Tian Shui and the others did not understand what An Shui meant. However, after staring at the Swanee seal for a while, they were all stunned. How could they not recognize that it was a complete Swanee seal with a core ultimacy? How could you? This is impossible. And Tian Shui and the others were a little confused. They asked one after another, "What on earth is going on?" And Shui thought to herself, "Senior Lin, you've already left. It's destined that no more trouble will come to you. I hope you can understand." Then, she gritted her teeth and told them how she and An Zheng had received guidance from Lin Sun. After learning all this, An Tian Shui and the others almost did not dare to believe their ears. After a while, they called Zheng to them and asked him to show them the profoundness of the Swanee seal. Only then did they finally dare to believe that all of this was true. Does this mean that Lin Daoyuan has mastered the 9 transformations of the Calamity Dragon? And Tian Shui gasped. He knew all too well how shocking this fact was. For example, the cultivators of the 9 great imperial clans were all shackled by an invisible chain that prevented them from touching the threshold of becoming emperor. The 9 transformations of the Calamity Dragon that was controlled by the clan leader of the true Dragon Clan was like a key that could unlock the shackles on the 9 great imperial clans. Originally, this key had been controlled by the clan leader of the true Dragon bloodline for 100,000 years. If the cultivators of the 9 great imperial clans wanted to become emperors, they could only obey and hand their fate over to the true Dragon bloodline. But now, this key was no longer unique. Another key had appeared in the hands of a cultivator who was completely unrelated to the true Dragon bloodline. This also meant that as long as the 9 great imperial clans acted and seized this key, they would be able to completely solve the problem of the shackles on them. At that time, who would be stupid enough to hand their fate over to the true Dragon bloodline? This is a chance to change the fate of the clan. And Tian Shui was so excited that his breathing was heavy and his limbs were trembling. The other old monsters were the same. They might not be able to control their own fate in this lifetime, but as long as they seized this opportunity, the next generation of the clan could completely break the shackles. After a while, Tian Shui calmed down and could not help but say in annoyance, "Schwerer, why didn't you say something so important earlier? If I had known this would happen, I would have done everything I could to make Lin Daoyuan stay and treat him as the most distinguished guest." The other old monsters were also helpless, and Shui said in a low voice, "It's not that I didn't want to say it, but that senior didn't allow it." He had already guessed that once he said it, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble. And Tian Shui said angrily, "Did you think that we would rob him?" And Shui said seriously, "If that senior doesn't agree, will you hold back?" And Tian Shui and the others looked at each other. In the end, they smiled bitterly and sighed. Indeed, when faced with an opportunity that could change the fate of their entire race, they might indeed be unable to resist doing this. And Shui hurriedly said, "But don't worry, uncles. That senior said that if he does, he will not be able to do anything. Now that I've successfully returned from the true Dragon bloodline, I might be able to discuss this matter with the higher-ups of our clan." And Tian Shui and the others immediately perked up. However, at the thought of how Lin Sun had dared to kidnap the Dragon Emperor of the Sea Cover, and Tian Shui and the rest could not help but feel depressed. Even if Lin Daoyuan could reach the Dragon Palace this time, how could he walk out smoothly? No matter what, we must report this matter to the Patriarch immediately. And Tian Shui made a decision. If possible, it would be best to let the entire 9 great imperial clans know about this. Let them know that Lin Daoyuan is someone who can change the fate of the 9 great imperial clans. If anything happens to him, this opportunity will be completely gone. After pausing for a moment, his eyes flickered and he said in a low voice, "In this way, the 9 great imperial clans might not be able to help much, but they will definitely not watch Lin Daoyuan be killed by the true Dragon bloodline." Everyone nodded to themselves. Over the countless years, many clansmen from the 9 great imperial clans had been dispatched to the Dragon Palace to serve as guards and servants. If Lin Daoyuan met with any mishap in the Dragon Palace, perhaps the 9 great imperial clans could mobilize their clansmen to help him in the Dragon Palace. In that case, as long as he survived and could walk out of the Dragon Palace successfully, he would definitely be grateful to the 9 great imperial clans for saving him. Of course, this was all based on the premise that Lin Daoyuan really had a chance to enter the Dragon Palace. This matter must be done as soon as possible. I believe that after the other imperial clans learn of this matter, they will definitely make the same decision as our Taowu clan. However, this matter cannot be known by too many clansmen. Otherwise, if the true Dragon bloodline were to learn of it, we 9 great imperial clans will definitely be dealt a heavy blow. And Tianshui ordered. On this day, Tianlin brought in Shui along as they left Jade Rainbow Isle hastily, and they returned to the Taowu clan to take action. After learning all of this, the higher-ups of the Taowu race made a unanimous decision without hesitation. No matter what, they couldn't let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip by. Soon, the upper echelons of the Taowu clan personally set out, heading to the Ice Dragon, Fu Hu, Pu Lao, Qianyo, Yazi, and the other emperor clans. Although this opportunity was tempting, it involved a taboo inheritance like the 9 transformations of the Tribulation Dragon. Their Taowu clan couldn't handle it alone, so they had to unite more forces. If the 9 great imperial clans were able to join hands, it would undoubtedly be the best situation. In the following period of time, all kinds of good news began to spread to the Mengmeng imperial clan in succession. The Ice Dragon imperial clan has agreed to the alliance. The Paleo imperial clan has agreed to the alliance. The Baxia imperial clan has agreed to, in the end, the other 8 great imperial clans all clearly expressed that they would join hands with the Taowu clan in this matter. They must firmly grasp this excellent opportunity. At this point, the 9 great imperial clans that had always been subordinate to the true dragon bloodline for the past 100,000 years had quietly and secretly formed a close alliance. And all of this was caused by Lin Sun's appearance. Lin Sun probably didn't expect that because of the 9 transformations of the Tribulation Dragon, the 9 great imperial clans would instead have some ideas. Some ideas related to changing the fate of their clans. Like a lightly flapping butterfly's wings, it inadvertently created a turbulent storm that was destined to affect the entire situation of the world. Chapter 23-25. In the sky above the turbulent sea, the dragon-whiskered black tortoise was shivering and shrinking in uneasiness. On its back, in the palace, the atmosphere was depressing. Lin Sun sat on the main seat and looked down at Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea was fuming with rage. His face turned green and he looked like he wanted to skin Lin Sun alive. I just want to know how to get to the Dragon Palace. Why are you so angry? Could it be that you are used to being high up all these years? Is it hard for you to accept that you are suddenly thrown down to the mortal world? Lin Sun said casually. Let me put it this way. If not for some reason, do you really think I will waste my breath on you? I will just search your soul. Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea's eyes were filled with rage and hatred. He said hoarsely, I am a true dragon. How can I lower my head like this? If you want to kill me, just do it. But I have to tell you that whoever offends the true dragon bloodline will be exterminated. Exterminated? Just 2 words, but the coldness in them was enough to chill the hearts of all the races in the world. This was not nonsense. With the supreme dominating aura of the true dragon bloodline, they did have such a foundation. Unfortunately, it was useless against Lin Sun. He got up and came before Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea. I will give you one last chance. Don't force me to use force. His calm voice was filled with an inviolable tone. Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea couldn't help but mock. Do it if you dare? Lin Sun nodded and said, Yellow, haven't you always wanted to taste the real dragon's meat? I'll leave this old worm to you. As he spoke, he released Big Yellow from the Tower of Endless. Hee. Big Yellow's eyes lit up when he saw Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea. He laughed sinisterly and excitedly, saliva dripping from his mouth. Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea was stunned and then terrified. He could sense that this Big Yellow was extremely terrifying and had a deadly dangerous aura. What do you want to do? Dragon Emperor Shrouding Sea gritted his teeth and his attitude was shaken. Big Yellow was instantly unhappy. As a noble emperor of the true dragon race, how can you be a coward? Come. Show me your backbone. You would rather die than submit. It was still waiting to eat dragon meat and taste the dragon soup. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's expression kept changing. Anger and humiliation surged in his heart. Ever since he started cultivating, this was the first time he had suffered such humiliation. He had lost all his face and dignity. Now, he was even being treated as a meal by a dog. I only want to know 3 things. As long as you answer truthfully, I promise I won't make things too difficult for you. Lin Sun said, let's talk about the first thing first. What happened at the 10,000 Dragons Immortals meeting that year? Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's expression changed abruptly as he said warily, this is a secret of my true dragon race. Why do you want to know about this? Lin Sun said, I'm asking you. But Big Yellow slapped the back of Dragon Emperor Shroud's head. Old worm, if you don't cooperate obediently, do you believe that I will dig out your dragon liver? As it spoke, sparkling and translucent saliva dripped from its mouth. Dragon liver. That was the essence of heaven and earth. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai saw stars from the slap. Looking at Big Yellow's drooling face, he was so embarrassed and furious that he wanted to fight this yellow dog to the death. But in the end, he controlled himself and said, I have nothing to say about this. Even if you search my soul, it is destined to be futile. His face was full of determination. Lin Sun frowned. Obviously, the meaning behind Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's words was very clear. If his soul was really searched, he had a way to stop Lin Sun from getting the answer he wanted. An incident that occurred during the All-Thousand Dragons Immortal Gathering had caused a 6th-level martial emperor to be unwilling to divulge the truth even if he had to die. It was obvious that this incident was no small matter. Do you want me to teach this old worm a lesson? Big Yellow gritted his teeth at the side and was tempted to make a move. Lin Sun shook his head and asked again, where is the Dragon Palace? This time, Dragon Emperor Fu Hai only hesitated for a moment before he gritted his teeth and said, without the support of the strong cultivators of my tribe, even if you know the location of our ancestral land, you are destined to be unable to enter. After a pause, his expression turned cold as he stared at Lin Sun. Of course, if you really have the guts to go there, I don't mind telling you. In this world, who didn't know that the Dragon Palace was the place where the bloodline of the true dragons resided? Who would dare to barge in? Even if it was an Emperor Realm existence, he would definitely not be able to return. Speak, Lin Sun didn't think much and asked directly. The land of the Dragon Palace was destined to be a real dragon's pool and tiger's den. It was incomparably dangerous and scary, but Lin Sun had a reason to go. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai was silent for a moment before he said, I can lead the way for you. Slap. Big Yellow slapped the back of his head again and said to Lin Sun, this old thing is not obedient. If he leads the way, once we enter the Dragon Palace, there will definitely be many changes. In my opinion, we should just search his soul directly. Let him lead the way. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. At present, he still couldn't judge whether Zhao Jingxuan's situation was good or bad. If he rashly killed an important person in the clan who was related to her by blood, it would probably be inappropriate. He took a deep breath and asked, the third thing. Recently, did a woman named Star Destroyer come to the bloodline of the true dragons? Dragon Emperor Fu Hai was stunned. Who is this woman? Lin Sun said, she came from the other side of the starry sky. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's pupils shrank and he immediately shook his head. I can tell you clearly that this Star Destroyer didn't come to the Dragon Palace. Lin Sun and Big Yellow looked at each other and couldn't help but frown. According to what second senior brother said, this Star Destroyer had already taken action and came to the Dragon World. But why didn't she go to the territory of the true dragons until now? However, this was also good news. As long as Star Destroyer didn't come, it meant that she hadn't obtained the ancestral dragon blood. It was destined that she wouldn't be able to recover the nameless Supreme Emperor who was only left with a remnant soul. Since things have come to this, may I ask who you are and why you insist on going to the Dragon Palace of my tribe? Dragon Emperor Fu Hai suddenly asked. He was really puzzled. In the dragon world, which strong cultivator dared to be so bold? Wasn't he afraid of being exterminated? But this man and dog in front of him seemed to have no scruples. This made Dragon Emperor Fu Hai feel that it was unbelievable. My name is Lin Sun. Lin Sun's heart shook. When he said his name, he stared closely at Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's expression. As expected, hearing this name, Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's pupils shrank and his expression changed. He seemed to be in disbelief. Without Lin Sun asking, he already cried out, "This is impossible. Many years ago, my tribe has already sunk the path to the starry sky ancient path. The path of cultivation has been cut off forever. How can you still reach it?" Lin Sun's heart shook when he heard this. He suddenly grabbed Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's neck and lifted him up. His eyes were terrifyingly cold, and he said word by word, "You cut off the path between the dragon world and the starry sky ancient path just to prevent me from finding it?" At this moment Big Yellow also realized that something was wrong. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's neck was being grabbed and he found it difficult to breathe. He also realized that he had just revealed a secret that he should not have. But he did not panic. Instead, he laughed hideously and said, "Lin Sun, haha. You are that human bastard who tarnished the dragon lady of my tribe. Where is Lu Boya? Why didn't that old bastard come with you?" Bang! Lin Sun threw him to the ground and said with a gloomy expression, "It seems that the true dragon bloodline has long known of my existence. And you even see me as an enemy." At this moment, the result that he was most unwilling to see had finally been confirmed. The true dragon bloodline was filled with hostility towards Lin Sun. And this was because of the matter between him and Jing Xian. Lin Sun thought of Yin Huan, who had been humiliated and chased away by the fourth prince of the true dragon bloodline, Ao Xianfeng. For a moment, his mood became heavy. He knew that from this moment on, he had to prepare for the worst. Should I smash this old worm and extract his spirit? Big Yellow also sensed that something was wrong with Lin Sun's mood. His tone also became murderous. "Ha ha ha, if you kill me, you will only die more miserably." Dragon Emperor Fu Hai laughed hideously. Lin Sun, you really shouldn't have come. Do you know that from the moment the All-Dragon Immortal Gathering ended, the person that the true dragon bloodline wants to kill the most is you, human bastard? If not because of some reason, my tribe would have long charged to the starry ancient path and torn you into pieces. You old bastard, you are already in such a situation and still so arrogant. You are courting death. Big Yellow was so angry that he directly raised his claws and slapped Dragon Emperor Fu Hai. The slaps were crisp and clear. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai's face was swollen, blood spurted from his mouth and nose, and his teeth fell off. Even his mind was in a daze. At this moment, Lin Sun had already guessed something. With a cold expression, he said, "In that case, the huge change that happened at the All-Dragon Immortal Gathering has something to do with Jing Xian?" Dragon Emperor Fu Hai suddenly shut his mouth and only sneered. "Do you want to know? It was as if I just don't want to tell you." Lin Sun was silent for a moment and completely calmed himself down. Then he said coldly, "It doesn't matter if you don't say. When I go to the Dragon Palace, everything will be revealed. You are courting death. I can't wait for you to go and die." Dragon Emperor Fu Hai laughed hoarsely. His face was red and swollen, and his hair was disheveled. He looked a little crazy. "Are you really not going to kill this old bastard?" Big Yellow couldn't help but ask. "Let him lead the way." Lin Sun took a deep breath and made a decision. "Big Yellow, prepare yourself with Shi and Xiaji. After entering the Dragon Palace, there might be a conflict." Big Yellow nodded. Although he was extremely arrogant, he also knew that this trip would be accompanied by great danger. He had to make some preparations in advance. Dragon Emperor Fu Hai was still sneering. Since ancient times, no one could shake the Dragon Palace. To him, Lin Sun and the others were like moths flying into a flame. They were courting death. Not long after, the huge dragon-whiskered black tortoise flew into the sky and shifted towards the distant ocean. Gradually, it disappeared from the world. P.S. First day of the month, please guarantee the monthly ticket.